something to do. So we're going to go through what's happening now, what's occurring, what's being talked about, just to kind of update you guys. I think everyone's awaiting. No one really knows anything but the jurors. So if people are saying they know, they don't really know, But we're going to talk about that too. So like the videos, you guys come in, fair use reaction clip. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Well, let's talk about it, everything. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it. What and I love going on certain pages to listen to some of the questions of what people have. And I love midday so we can kind of understand what is, what isn't transpiring, what's happening. I love that part of the day. I do. So we can get you guys some questions answered and get a full understanding. The news gives that to us, period. There's no confusion, no drama. A lot of times I'm listening and I kind of understand what they're saying before they say it, but I love how they break it down, real talk. So there's that. But let me fix this because I kind of want that to, yeah, there we go. Okay, so coming in, like the video, subscribe to the page, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for being here, everyone. Let me go ahead and get to my disclaimer. Hold on one second. Find myself. But thanks for being here, everyone. I appreciate everyone. Let's see. Come on in, come on in. Is it showing? Come on in. Let me see. Come on in. That's interesting. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me see. Can you guys hear me okay? There I am. Okay. It takes a minute, y'all, and I got to find myself. Let me get to my disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're just going to do a midday update. Yes, always got to do the disclaimer, real talk. Okay, so we're going to get into what's being talked about, what the breakdowns are, what the conversation is. I love lawyer talk that makes sense. I love it. They break it down. We're not getting a lot of fluff conversations that's not making any sense. So I was hearing some decent stuff. And then there's something that I might talk about tomorrow. I was looking for something. I haven't found it. A lot of times for me, I have to see 2 to 3 sources that's going to talk about it. Hello. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're going to generally talk about hot topics, trending topics. We're going to talk about what's going on at the courthouse. Come on in. Let me know where you're watching from. Thanks for being here. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 you've been here before, where you're watching from. Okay, I can't have you do that constantly. That's not what we do over here. Goodbye. No. We won't be doing that. You can say hello. You can say have a great day. But the same old, no. You're not going to spam my chat. Yeah, just be kind. Just no weird stuff. Thanks for being here, everyone. I appreciate you all. We're going to generally talk about what's going on. I hope everyone's having a great day. What do you guys think? Do you think he's going to be found guilty, not guilty? Or do you think there's going to be a mistrial? We're hearing general stuff that there is a juror that's having some concerns. Nobody knows which way they're voting. Nobody knows. It's just the jurors that's in there. I don't even think the attorneys are in there. So people are saying, we know, we know. And even with in regards to the transcript, I don't think a lot's going on. It's just jurors deliberating. So we're going to get to that too. But be careful of the information you hear, misinformation. We always try and give y'all good information, positive information, straight talk. We don't do a lot of clickbait over here. I don't have time for clickbait. I don't have time for none of that. When I go live, I'm away from things I really want to be doing. But it's so important to give you guys information. This might help a woman, a married woman, a single woman, a woman that's looking for a good man. This might help someone. This is why we do it. Real talk. This might help someone to be careful who you marry, who you date, and who you get involved with. Be careful of what their likes are. You got to have likes too. Never do anything that's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So we're going to get to this clip, and we're going to generally talk about what the media is talking about, what the news is talking about. But like the videos, you guys come in. We have about 72 in the building. Double tap that screen, y'all. Please, please, please. And subscribe. So let's get to it.
The verdict.
Hold on one
Here's
second.
What we need to talk.
Hold on. Like the videos, you guys come in. Okay. Do you guys think he's guilty, not guilty, or there's going to be a mistrial? What do you think the jurors are going to decide?
During deliberations, and it sounded like juror number 25 couldn't necessarily follow the instructions. So right away, this is a stunning revelation, right? I mean, what are we going to make of it? And we could go multiple ways, right? I wasn't in the deliberation room, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. It could be that juror number 25 simply would not follow the instructions, not to sound too Dr. Seuss. Or it could be perhaps, and this is what I've seen in some reporting, is that potentially there was some sort of, I don't want to say language barrier, but maybe a simple misunderstanding. Because, I mean, I'm thinking about myself. I was recently just traveling to Montreal. My French is okay, but my vocab is strictly travel related. It's not, if I all of a sudden was on a jury in Montreal and I had to translate racketeering or RICO, I would be like, wait, hold on, what are we talking about? So I'm wondering if potentially maybe it was something like that. They were sent back to deliberate, and they continued on for a couple more hours after that. So I don't know, it could go either way, but I have huge questions about juror number 25, and then of course the question that ended yesterday.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because you think of how long the testimony's gone, and then I just imagine you get to the deliberation room. It was at 1:27 in the afternoon that they received a note that juror 25 and the jury had said, we believe cannot follow your instructions. So it was a couple hours into this that they realized that they were having a bit of an issue. We didn't hear about that juror. Then when the second note came in, which we'll talk about with our panel in a bit, which came in at 4:49 p.m., if an individual asks for a controlled substance and the person hands it over, is it distribution? So that was the other kind of question that stood out to us that the jury had asked right before they went home for the day. Sierra, we do have our first question coming in from the chat. If you're watching us right now, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to drop in your questions. We'll read them live on the air. With Diddy's apology video, this is asked by Joanna M. With Diddy's apology video where he confesses himself to doing it, why are we taking so long for a guilty verdict?
Oh, this is such a great question. Thank you to all of our viewers who have been writing in. And this is something, this Diddy video that he posted to Instagram in May of 2024 following the release of that Intercontinental video. Of course, you guys know it now. Jurors have seen it. It was first leaked, quote unquote, to CNN. This is something that we talk about all the time on my channel, Scandal. So I just have to take a minute and remind you guys, if you like what you're seeing, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We talk all things at the moment, P. Diddy, but beyond that, anything that's sort of celebrity crime or gossip or drama, make sure to subscribe because there's a lot of things. And this falls right into it, okay? So we see this video, this Intercontinental video, which is harrowing, by the way. And in opening statements, the defense, Tenny Garrico, she simply said, yes, that was domestic violence. They straight say, hand up, yes, that was. And that was really the first time we heard from Diddy, his voice, his face, amongst these many civil lawsuits where he says, I hurt that woman. Actually, we have the clip up, so if any of you guys haven't seen it, let's just play it right now before I answer the rest of the question.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I mean, I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, go into rehab. I had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
And I I just have to remind you guys the timeline in all of this, right? Okay, so Cassie files her lawsuit in November of 2023. It's settled within 24 hours. We do hear more from her, right? Actually, in this courthouse behind me eventually. Then we get a flurry of lawsuits. We're talking Lil Rob, the original Jane Doe, Liza Gardner. I mean, all of these are coming out. Then that video in May of 2024, and now we hear from Diddy for the first time, minus a statement posted to his Instagram in December of 2023. So we're hearing that. It's shocking. And then I'm starting to wonder, after the indictment, will P. Diddy take the stand, especially after he says, yes, I did that. He admitted to it. Well, we all know at this point, Diddy chose not to take the stand, which I'm sure, Chris, you can talk with Serena and Candace about that. It seems like, in my opinion, might have been the correct decision. But to the question that we had from our viewer, why is it taking so long in deliberation if we already have this video? To which I say, this was a domestic violence incident that he said that he's admitting to. And he's not charged with any sort of domestic violence. I mean, we're talking racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, like forced fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And while DV and domestic violence doesn't look...
Good afternoon, everyone. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. We only have 8 likes. We got about 117 people in the building. Can I please get 80 people to hit the like button? Just double tap the screen, please. Double tap the screen. If you're watching from a phone, all you have to do is double tap the screen. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Good, and in fact is bad. I don't know if it necessarily proves all of those things. I mean, we heard from the government, we heard from the defense, we heard from both sides. And also, by the way, 5.5 hours of deliberation, to me, doesn't seem very long. I think it's good. I think it's a good sign showing that the jurors are doing their job and talking things out, Chris.
Yeah, and just a note on that apology video as well, he deleted it after it was posted, as if as someone with millions of followers, that we in the media and everybody else wouldn't save the video.
I posted his apology letter this week. Go check out my short. I got it. Go watch it on my shorts.
Or forget about it. I also remember 50 Cent, who's been pretty vocal during this trial and heading into the trial. I remember him commenting something along the lines of, like, fire your PR person after Diddy posted that apology video. Sierra Gillespie outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. We'll check in with you at the end of this hour. I know you'll also be hosting our live stream coverage from 4 to 5. We're going to be live throughout the day here on Law and Crime. Jesse Weber will be coming up at noon as well as we continue to follow these jury deliberations. And if there is a verdict, we'll also be firing up the live stream here and bring you analysis live. Sierra Gillespie, the host of Scandal on Law and Crime. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We'll talk to you shortly.
Thanks, Chris. Talk soon.
All right, let's bring in our panel of guests. We have Candace Kelly, a legal analyst and professor of media law at Rowan University, who has also been in the courtroom during this trial. So I'm excited to get your thoughts on this jury, what you were able to take away from this jury, and any details you can give. And also Serena Townsend, a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor. Serena, Rosa Hernandez says, I love Serena Townsend. So fan favorite, we'll start off with you right out of the gate. Question coming in from ZeroCool278. How come the jury selected the foreperson and not the judge in this case?
So that is standard practice, and it's very interesting because with the foreperson, we shouldn't get confused. The foreperson doesn't have any additional say or any more weight than any other juror. They're just like any other juror. All they really are is the person who signs the jury note. Sometimes they're the ones who actually write the jury note, but they don't have to be. And they're the person, of course, who announces the verdict. So, you know, in a way, psychologically, they end up being like the leader of the pack, the leader of those deliberations. But in reality, they don't have any additional weight as any other juror. And it is standard practice for them to just figure it out themselves.
Update coming in from the courtroom. The judge has gone to the bench. I know yesterday, he is on the bench right now. So I know yesterday he said that they weren't going to meet in the morning in the courthouse, that the jurors would be able to show up at 9 o'clock and just continue on with their deliberations. So we'll see if there's any updates that come in, especially related to some of the...
So general question, guilty, not guilty, mistrial. Do you think the jurors are going to make a decision today, tomorrow, or just before the 4th of July? Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for being here. Be kind in the comments. Please be kind in the comments. Thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like. Continue to hit the like.
Notes that we heard from the jury yesterday. Candace, you spent time during this trial in the courtroom. When you hear about this juror number 25, he's a male, he's a scientist, 51 years old. What do you make of that note coming back in the first couple hours of deliberations?
Well, you know, from what we understand about this particular juror, he has an accent. And so the first time that I heard the note, I thought maybe there was a comprehension problem. And like Sierra just said, was it comprehension or was it something that he just didn't want to do when you get this note saying he's unable to really follow the law? So that was my first thought. The other thought was that he's not one of those jurors that, to me, that when I'm in the courtroom and I look at him and his actions, he's not someone who's as energetic and kind of puts something on their face when you can kind of try to read. He happens not to be one of those people. but it did get me to thinking that, wow, I think that was right before
Good
2 hours,
afternoon. Good
that note,
afternoon.
there might be a few more problems, right? Unless this foreperson, as you said, he's the person who sits in a room and kind of galvanizes and makes sure that everybody is on track and make sure that this person speaks and this person speaks. Unless they get that together, there is going to be a problem. It was interesting that he asked the judge to please speak to this juror. That is not a good sign. The fact that we heard later notes that seemed to move on perhaps from that, that was a good feeling for me to say, okay, maybe they have moved on and it's not going to be as much of a problem as I thought initially.
Right, yeah, and this foreperson that's been selected, I know Elizabeth Milner was talking about this yesterday with Jesse. He's an investment analyst, just 31 years old. Think of the responsibility now on his shoulders. He's a Connecticut Country Club member and plays sports, video games, and considers himself religious. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of the foreperson on this jury. Serena, we have another question coming in. Why wouldn't the judge sequester this jury? This is from MC. This case is so high profile, and it feels like there's too much media frenzy around this.
Yeah, I mean, I think just over the course of time, we have discovered that sequestering a jury is just really bad for people. It's bad for jurors. They're away from their families. And I don't think that in a cost-benefit analysis, we ended up getting any more any better verdicts or any more valid verdicts from sequestered jurors than non-sequestered jurors. I definitely understand the question. I agree. You would think, like, this is so high profile. We really want to make sure that they're not doing anything wrong. They're not going online. They're not talking to their family, because it is a really, really hard job. The temptation is crazy for these jurors. They must want to do all of those things. And so, yeah, you would think that sequestering them would be a good idea. But overall, we as a society have just kind of moved away from sequestering juries unless it's really, 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 truly necessary. It's very difficult for the psyche of a person to be sequestered for such a long period of time away from their normal life.
And Candace, let's talk about the other note that was sent, a question that came in at 4:49. So this was right before they ended the day. If an individual asks for a controlled substance and the person hands it over, is it distribution? What part of the testimony that you heard in covering this trial do you think the jury is talking about when they're asking this question?
So we know, first of all, that they are in RICO, and if they're going through the way that the judge actually presented the jury instructions, he talked about a few things first in terms of aiding and abetting and things of that nature. But the first law that he really talked about was the RICO statute.
Like the video, like the video. There's about 177 in the building. Please subscribe and please turn on your notification. Let's get the likes to 100, you guys. We got 17 likes and 100 and something in the building. Please double tap the screen. If you're watching from a phone, press 1, and please double tap the screen to hit the like. We have about 253 in the building. If I can get 253 to please subscribe, and thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
So if they're going in order, they are in RICO and they are talking that predicate drug offense. So they want to know, if Sean Combs gave someone a drug, but they asked, does that still count as distribution? So when we look at the testimony, we hear from many people, whether it's Jane, whether it's Cassie, who have said that, hey, Sean is the one who gave me these drugs. In fact, we heard Cassie's former roommate and former very good friend who they met when they were 14 years old as models say that Cassie was never on drugs at all. So the fact that she is this drug addict is something that she knows Sean Combs led her to. So when we look at this whole idea of distribution, we're looking at whether or not Sean Combs is the one who gave Cassie the drugs, for example, or gave Mia the drugs, or gave Jane the drugs, or gave anybody the drugs. That's what we're talking about. The judge said, look, you have to go back to the jury instructions. I can't interpret that for you. But I think it would make sense that they might come to a yes on that. I can't imagine that you would have someone say, for example, maybe say I'm selling drugs to someone and because they asked for it. That doesn't let me off the hook just because they asked for it. Again, I don't know the answer. I could imagine how they could get to that particular answer that I just came to. You gave it to them, so therefore that's distribution, even if it's just one person.
Right, and the judge, again, on the bench right now, we're waiting for an update from the courtroom because at the end of yesterday around 5 o'clock when the jury said they were going to go home, the judge said that they would get an answer to that question from the jury. So we'll hear what they say when we're expecting it at any minute, really, at this point. Questions now coming in from about Christina Courtroom, Diddy's, his words, right-hand man. She was not...
KK, why do y'all think KK didn't take the stand? And let me know in the comments. Is he guilty, not guilty? Will there be a mistrial? And would you want to be a juror? Would you want to be away from your family for 6 to 7 weeks? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
To testify in this trial, but she came up a lot. And you got to wonder if the jurors are talking about her already because she was such a prominent figure in the arguments that the prosecution made throughout the 7 weeks of testimony. I have a question coming in. Serena, I'll go to you. Jackie Reed asks, will we ever find out why KK was not called to testify?
Well, you'll find out if an indictment drops against her. I do think at some point we may find out. We may not. Look, it could be that she was another cooperator and we just don't know about it. These kinds of deals that are made behind closed doors with prosecutors are sometimes, sometimes we get to peek behind the curtain of those because it comes out during certain testimony, or because, like we've been talking about, some of them actually testify against the big fish. She has been shrouded in secrecy. It's true. We don't know. Did she cooperate? Are they coming up with an indictment against her? Was she going to cooperate and then got cold feet? We don't really know, but there's certain things that we'll never find out. I do think we're going to find out a little bit about what she did, what her role was, and whether she herself is under investigation, is going to be indicted for her role in this whole situation.
I also just want to know, where she is. Where has she been hiding out for the last couple of months? Candace, for you, another question, Christina Coram related. This is from Linda Mima. Will KK most likely have her own trial?
Good question.
If there is an indictment, we have to think of KK in this way, in my opinion. KK was available to both sides, right? So I'm sure that they both did their due diligence to say, could we use her? And we don't know if there was a deal that was made. As she just said, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But that being said, neither one of them thought strong enough, based upon their own, what was going on in their defense and prosecutorial worlds, to bring her there. The other thing is that during the summary witnesses, we saw dozens of pages of charts of digital evidence, of emails, of texts that brought KK in. So they kind of did put her at the scene in many situations without physically having to put her on the stand. Because once we put her on the stand, we don't know what she'll say for either side. And they definitely had to have thought about that, weighed that, and at the end decided against that. Could there be an indictment? Could there be a trial for KK? Absolutely.
Could you imagine what the days would have been for that witness testimony, though? I mean, think about just following the transcript, pins and needles. So that was taken from us. Obviously, perhaps a smart decision that she didn't go on the stand. Let's go to our first poll, actually, coming in. Which factor do you think influenced the jury?
There's about 300 people in the building. Please subscribe and thank you. Please subscribe and thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
The most, more than 1,000 of you voted. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Witness testimony, 54%, surveillance, 17%. Defense strategy was 15%, and then prosecution narrative 13%. When you see the witness testimony, Serena, at 54%, obviously these are our viewers voting on this, not a jury. If that's how the jury is seeing it, that the witness testimony is driving their decision of whether Sean Combs is guilty, is that good or bad for the prosecution?
First of all, I love this poll. I love this question because as a trial attorney myself, I always want to know what the people are thinking, what is affecting them, how they're thinking about different things and different pieces of evidence. And testimonial evidence, that is witness testimony, is clearly driving this whole deliberation. And, at least with the law and crime viewers, I actually think it favors the prosecution because there were no witness testimony for the defense. So I think if people are really hinging on what the witness testimony said, unless people are saying that they are thinking poorly about the witness testimony, that they felt that the witnesses did not testify well, and that the defense got a lot of good jabs against those witnesses on the stand, which is also possible. But I do think that your viewers are right, because that's the bulk of the evidence here is witness testimony. And they're also right because the surveillance video, as much as it kind of fills in some of the blanks and it colors some of that in for us, it shouldn't necessarily be the driving force, because as we've covered for this whole trial,
Good
that
afternoon.
domestic violence situation against Cassie is not specifically charged in this case. It is used as context, but it's not necessarily a charge in the case. There's no assault specifically against Cassie to deliberate about. So I agree with the viewers. I think the testimony is super important here. And I also found it interesting that they're almost split down the middle between the defense and prosecutors, closing arguments or strategy. I think that's interesting. And I think that we're going to see that reflected in the jury deliberations too.
Yeah, always good to agree with our viewers as well. I know they like that. Old Hollywood Angels chiming in this morning. Good morning to you, because I know you've been with us each day.
You guys, we're almost at 39K. 300 people in the building. Can I please get 200 people to please subscribe? We're almost at 39K. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm bringing y'all the TTT. Eating my lunch while I'm talking to y'all. Just finished my lunch and I'm sitting here bringing y'all the tea. This information was so good, I had to bring it to you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Hey, as we've been live following this trial, Candace.
200 people, please subscribe. We're almost at 39K. We've been trying for 2 days. Thank you.
How long is too long for a verdict to take place? Can this take as long as it needs? What's the time limit? And you think of the 4th of July coming up on Friday, so it's a short week.
Listen, that is a great question, especially with July 4th coming up. Here's the deal. They can deliberate for as long as they want. Do they want it to go for 2 months? No, they don't want it to go for 2 more days. We've got July 4th coming up. Last week it was 104 degrees on one of these days. These people are coming to and from this particular courthouse, and it can be very, very straining on one. I think that when we look at something like we go with R. Kelly's case, which I also covered, it took about 22 hours in one of his cases, 11 hours in another case. Kenneth Raniere.
Do you think he'll be guilty, not guilty, mistrial? Would you have wanted to be a juror? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments.
4 hours. It really depends. It depends upon all the evidence. The fact that we are at what 5.5 hours and we're still in RICO and we're still in those predicate crimes, which their last question was about a predicate crime of drug distribution. They're not going to have a verdict today. I mean, there's no way. I would imagine that it's going to come before the 4th. I can imagine that tomorrow they might wrap up some of the details, all get confirmed by the end of a long day, right? Because they can also go beyond the courthouse closes, and then maybe come back the day after.
Good afternoon.
And say, are we still on the same page? So I would say totality, 2.5 days.
I think that's a great point because, I mean, the jury instructions themselves are 62 pages long. So you're going through that, trying to figure it out, make sure everybody understands it. Clearly, there's the issue with juror number 25 yesterday, at least showing that there's a little bit of confusion about that. Then you get into the charges, like the RICO charge, where you're figuring out those underlying crimes and piecing together everything you heard over the past 7 weeks. It's a lot to get through, and then finally getting to the point of making a decision. We do have a super chat question coming in from Kelly Bezick. We really appreciate that. Serena, I'll go to you with it. Consent can't be used as a legal defense against sex trafficking, but there are alternative strategies that seem identical. How is that true?
Well, you could use any legal strategy that you can in order to get out of a guilty verdict. Honestly, a defense is going to try its best to choose the strategy that's going to bolster their story most. Obviously, consent can be given and withdrawn at any time. And so it's difficult for anybody to say, oh, this didn't happen. He can't be found guilty because she consented. There's enough testimony, in my opinion, to show that consent was in fact withdrawn. And so you can't necessarily put all your eggs in that basket. And so I think what you're trying to say is like, how can you have conflicting strategies? You're right. I mean, it gets confusing to a jury. I think it's very important for a defense and even also for a prosecution to really zero in on that strategy and, kind of swing it on home. You can't be going left and right. You can't be saying, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe she consented, maybe she didn't. So yeah, I mean, it gets a little bit confusing, and I don't know, you just kind of have to go with it. You have to pick something that's going to get him off. There was so much testimony here to bury him, I think, that they had to go with something, even if it sounded inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff to go through in that jury room, Candace. Another question coming in related to juror number 25, who was the one yesterday the jury sent a note about saying that he may have issues just understanding the directions that the judge gave. The question comes from Lucy Whitaker. If number 25 cannot follow the judge instructions, will he get replaced or given chance to figure it out?
Listen, he's got to get a chance to figure it out. They've started deliberations. There's been nothing that's been put on record that says he's going to be acting in any way that goes against the grain of how the jury system works. He just simply didn't understand, and they didn't understand what they needed to do. Unless you've been on a jury, you really don't understand the rules and guidelines. So asking questions is okay. And the fact that he had a question and wanted to make sure that he could be kind of guided through this, that's okay. He is not going anywhere at this point. They're going to continue. And the worst thing to do is to interrupt the whole process of the jury system and the whole process of making sure that people get their voices heard. You don't want to mess with the jury at all. You just want to have them be put in their place, and until they come out, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 days, or 2 months, we will wait for you to come up with your decision to make sure that justice is served.
Could you imagine if it's 2 months? We're here every single morning for the next 2 months. I don't hate it. I love it, but certainly would take up the morning. Question, Serena, coming in from Show and Tell Knitting. Aren't the names of the jurors known from voir dire, which is the process of when the jurors are selected, or when they're sworn in? What protects them from the press hounding them or Diddy stalking them after the trial?
A great question. Yes, their names are known. It is not buried. It is not hidden. They don't get into.
Great question. We're almost there, you guys. Can I please get 300 people to please subscribe? Please subscribe and turn on your notification. We're almost at 39K. Please subscribe and thank you. Fair use reaction clip.
Like witness protection. And, some of those jurors might take advantage of that. Like some of them after the case, we've seen that in other high profile cases, they could, write a book about it. They could get their interviews. And sometimes people parlay their experience into a whole new career for themselves. But on the other hand,
would you want to be a juror? Would you write a book? Would you do interviews if you're a juror? Let me know in the comments.
You're right. It is a very scary position to be in. Think of it as comparing them to the victims that testified against Diddy. They too are afraid to point the finger at him. And if a jury comes back guilty, Diddy is not alone, as he's being charged, in fact, with this RICO crime, right? He could have other people who do his dirty work for him. And so if you're a juror finding him guilty, it probably is kind of scary. Like, who are his associates that could stalk you or go against you? They really do not have protection. What I will say is if there is a verifiable threat,
good afternoon,
if a juror actually has, something, people calling them, people visiting them, then of course they could, go to law enforcement and try to get protection there. But there's nothing just like built in to the system that protects them immediately.
Have a few more updates coming in from court, and this is the back and forth that we're hearing from the prosecution and the defense related to the question about drug distribution that came in yesterday just before the jury went home. I'm going to read it for you from the information we're getting. The judge says, I'm adopting the government's answer to the drug distribution question. Combs' defense attorney Driscoll says, can we just put something on the record about sole possession? The definition of distribution would mislead the jury. The judge then says, both sides agreed to this definition without question, so what is it? Combs' defense attorney says, 1 second. And then the assistant U.S. attorney Comey says they're trying to mislead the jury. Then more from court, another update here. The judge says they have been specific in their question, and so is this answer. Combs Driscoll, Your Honor, can you just mark our defense proposal as a court exhibit? Yes. Serena, what do you make of the back and forth as the prosecution and defense, after they were very detailed in figuring out these jury instructions, in the wake of this question from the jury, here they are going back and forth some more?
Yeah, so I think that, the judge is going to want to simplify this as much as possible for the jury. It sounds like the judge is adopting the prosecution's position here to get a pretty easy answer to the jury with these questions. And the defense wants to, elaborate a little bit more. They don't want a jury to think that it's so easy. A defense usually wants to make it a little bit more complicated for a jury, because the more complicated it is, the more reasonable doubt. And so that, I think, is what Ms. Comey, the prosecutor, was trying to say, like, the defense is just trying to mislead the jury, trying to confuse the jury, and the judge, as the referee, is really trying to simplify everything as much as possible. They do not want a mistrial. They do not want a ton more notes with clarifying questions being asked. Judge wants to really streamline things. And then you hear the defense say, well, can you at least mark our position as a court exhibit? So what the defense is trying to do is say, okay, judge, well, if you're not going to give us what we want to at least lay a foundation for a potential appeal down the road. Mark this as an exhibit. Like, let's put a stake in it. Let's make it clear on the record what we wanted, what you did not give us, so that if we lose down the road, we could use this as another avenue for appeal, that you didn't give us an instruction that we were entitled to.
Updates coming in from court again. The parties have adjourned.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Can I please get 300 people to please subscribe? Please hit the like button, you guys. If you're watching from a phone, press 1. Double tap the screen. Let's please get the likes to 100. Let's please get the likes to 100. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thank you.
Yes, which the yes is to the question of if an individual asks for a controlled substance and that person hands it over, is it distribution? The judge answering the jury's question again with a simple yes. We do believe that deliberations started at the top of the hour, so that would put us now at 6 hours of jury deliberations. Candace, I want to turn to you because you have been in this courtroom during the trial. You have seen this jury. We were talking specifically about juror number 25, but we've only seen the courtroom sketches. You've seen this jury. What stood out to you about them, the way that they took in this testimony, especially when I think of Cassie Ventura, I think of Jane, how emotional they were on the stand, certainly the freak-off videos that they had to see. What stood out to you?
Well, let's start with the freak-off videos, because there was such a reaction by the jurors. During the first couple of weeks of the trial, what the jurors were seeing were just pictures. It was only during the last couple of weeks of trial that they started opening up the door to have moving video. And there were jurors who ripped off their headphones because it was a lot. It's a lot, especially in the morning, because you're taking in a lot of pornographic, what we would understand as pornographic video and information. And if you are not exposed to that and haven't looked at that, it can be very, very jarring. There were other times where there were some jurors who just did not have the poker face. 2 or 3 in particular from day one. Sometimes they would look at the audience to even look at what people were thinking about in the gallery, maybe to get some eye contact. Many times, most of the times, it translated as, I don't believe this, do you? So I think it was really interesting to see how just progressively things kind of turned out in terms of how much they were giving. Now, when it came to the point where Sean Combs got in trouble for potentially communicating by his nods and his head shakes with the jury, well, then that's when things kind of settled down a little bit. He got a warning. I don't know if the jurors got a warning, but it certainly made a difference in terms of the physicality and the emotions and what they showed on their face in terms of reaction. That slowed down a lot. Nobody wants to be in trouble, and certainly Sean Combs got admonished by the judge. You got to stop doing this. There should be no communication. The jury should not have any type of facial expression the best that they can. I mean, yeah, they're going to laugh. They're going to wince maybe every once in a while. But during those first 2 weeks especially, they were very, very interactive, shall I say, with their facial expressions.
I remember Elizabeth Milner, our in-court reporter, who will be joining the live stream around noon, as she typically does with our Jesse Weber, just talking about how emotional it was specifically during Cassie's testimony.
Some people were saying a lot about his eyes. What do y'all see when y'all look into his eyes? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Right at the beginning of this trial, and now 6-7 weeks later, how does that play out in the jury room, where we showed you those images of what is a pretty bland room, but it gives you an idea of the environment that these jurors are in as they're trying to figure out the fate of Sean Combs. We do have a super chat question coming in once again from Kelly Bezick. We appreciate you so much for sending your second super chat question of the day. Serena, Mark Agnifalo's narrative, lifestyle choice, etc., mirrors his defense for Keith Raniere, who many people may remember from the Nexium cult. Is it easier to use same narrative, or there's no other option?
What a great question. Is he just like taking out his summation from his previous trial and revamping it? That's such a good question, because there are limits really to what you could argue in these kinds of cases. And so it's not necessarily surprising that he's going with that vibe and that kind of narrative. But yeah, I don't know how successful it was the last time, so maybe that needs to be polished up a bit. But you are identifying something very interesting, which is a defense attorney only has so many things that they can say in defense of a person. Usually it's, it wasn't me, it was somebody else who got the wrong guy, misidentification. That can't happen here. Or it was, that a witness forgot, or they have a motive to lie. Maybe you can delve into that a little bit here. And then, of course, there's this consent aspect. And I think that that's what he's dancing around. It's not pure consent, but it's a lifestyle choice, as you say, and as he said, really. And I think that's really the only option. You identified it. It's really the only option that he could have gone with. There's not much else he could say here.
Yeah, let's see how effective it is this time around. Another poll result coming in. This is a good question. Would you want to serve on a high-profile jury?
We just asked that. Would you want to serve on a high-profile jury? Like the video. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Yes, I do my duty, says 52%. No, too much pressure, 28%. Only if anonymous, 18%. I have before, so let's run it back, 1%. Shout out to the 1% out there today. 1.6 thousand of you voting on this. Candace, good question here too from Daniel Daniels. Is there compensation for jury duty, or is there just pizza afterwards?
There is compensation. In New York, what is it, like $50, $60 a day? You really do have to plan. Just kind of springing off that previous question. You have to plan your life, because if you are in a job where you're getting paid a per diem.
So $50, $60 a day. I guess that's a little bit more than I thought. So that helps with some bills. That's not too bad. It's almost like $10 an hour. Almost. If they're there for 5 hours, it's almost $10 an hour. Like the video, fair use reaction clip.
And you only get money when you go to work. You probably are fighting for, I do not need to be on this jury. I can. It's a financial burden.
Yeah.
Even if not, you can't get fired from your job if you serve on a jury. That's one of the rules that has been outlined.
That's good to know.
System. But the truth is that you do have to give up a part of your life, your family. Again, we talked about being sequestered. It doesn't really bode well when you have someone that is sequestered. People who are sequestered, it can be a very kind of frightening, tough experience, because they don't have any access to the outside world. You want someone who's going to be as happy as a juror as they can be in order to give a good verdict. So they do get paid, but certainly it's not going to make up for anybody's salary.
No. A good question here, Serena, coming in as well. Amanda Tavares. I'm curious to know what's the longest you've had to wait for a jury to come back.
Good question.
Oh my God. And it's excruciating when you have to wait, because the heart is pounding. I usually get good verdicts for myself. But it could go. I think the longest I ever had to wait was like 4 days. And that was a long one. And we joke kind of in our own trial lawyer community about the Friday verdict. And we were touching on this a little bit earlier with July 4th coming up. And I agree that I think Thursday is going to be the day that we get a verdict here, because it's the equivalent of a Friday verdict in this type of week where there is no Friday. But basically what that means is, the jury, they want to get it right, but they also have other things going on in their lives. And they sometimes set this like internal, maybe they don't even realize it, but this internal timeline where they're like, okay, if we don't have something by this date, it's ridiculous. We just got to end it at some point. So yeah, the longest I've ever had was 4 days. But usually it's about 2 days, maybe 3 in a situation like this. And then, of course, the Friday verdict vibe.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a Thursday verdict this time around. Candace, good question here, too, from Dr.
So do you think they'll reach a verdict before the holiday? Fair use reaction clip. You guys, we're almost at 39K. If I can please get 100 more people to please subscribe. We're almost at 39K, you guys. Please definitely subscribe. And thank you. Fair use reaction clip.
Dean Butler. If Diddy walks free after all of this, then what? Does he still have a home to go back to, or has that life collapsed? And what about this? What about all his so-called friends? Will they come back to him?
My guess is this. First of all, physically, sure, he has a home to go to. He hired a forfeiture asset specialist to kind of deal with anything that might be down the pipe. But you have to think about those dozens of civil lawsuits that even once he goes free, he's going to be back in court, whether it's for himself, whether it's for, a recently filed case that involved him and his son, allegedly. He has dozens of civil lawsuits that he's going to have to deal with. So financially, it's going to be different. We know that while he went into this, it was worth almost $1 billion. If you go ahead and Google and look at people and experts talk about his worth, they say now about $400 million. So we know that he is spending a lot for attorney's fees, not just now in court, but to work the court cases that have come down the pike already. So he's going to come out. He might be a free man in terms of his physicality, but mentally.
Let me know in the comments. Do you think he's guilty, not guilty, or do you think there'll be a mistrial? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for subscribing, you guys. I do see the numbers are going up. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
He is back at it at this type of a situation in terms of defending himself, paying attorneys, and figuring out what is my defense going to be. The homes, they are still there. He didn't have to do anything in terms of selling them. But again, free in his mind, not quite yet. Not for a very long time.
And yeah, I mean, dozens of lawsuits in the civil world that he is currently facing. So even if he's able to walk, which I know a lot of people we've had on and say a clean, just not guilty across the board. A lot of people say that that's not likely. We'll see what the jury decides. Candace, since you were in the courtroom as well, I have another one for you. This was actually a line from CNN we just saw that Combs, as he was in there, he briefly talked to his mom. And he said,
real quick, do you think that the civil lawsuits are factual? Do you think, regards to the civil lawsuits, do they have police reports, hospital reports, notes, text messages? Do they have proof? If they don't have proof, that's going to be a concern. Do you think some of those people have proof? Let me know in the comments about the civil lawsuit. Nothing can happen allegedly with the civil lawsuits until he's done with this trial. Let me know what you think about the civil lawsuits. Do they have police reports? Do they have hospital records? Do they have their NDA that they signed? Do you think they'll be able to prove their case against him? And will he pay off a lot of people? Diddy has a lot of lawyers right now helping him through this trial. Do you think these lawyers will be able to get him off? Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for subscribing. Appreciate you all. We're almost 40 away. Can I please get 50 people to please subscribe? We're almost there. 50 people, please subscribe. We're almost at 39K. Please hit the subscribe and thank you.
something along the lines of everything's going to be all right. He's being then brought back into kind of a room where he can wait out the deliberations. What stood out to you, especially for so many of us, I keep talking about this, of like, we grew up with Sean Combs. We have a vision in our mind of who P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, who he was for such a long period of time. But then we see the sketches and he's in the sweater and he's got the gray hair, even though we thought apparently that he looked like a koala when he was there. But I mean, the person we see here on the screen, that's the Sean Combs I think about. Who's the Sean Combs that you've seen in the courtroom?
So, what's interesting is that I will sometimes spend time in the spillover room as well as the courtroom. In the courtroom, you can see Sean Combs, obviously, the back of him a lot. But when he comes in, especially even just from that first weekend on, and this has been his kind of MO, he will come in, he will say hello to people individually, he will look you sometimes in the eye, he will grab his hands and clasp them and kind of bow down a little bit. Always very interactive with his family, who has been there on a consistent basis, especially his mom. Also, when the doors close, if you look through the cracks, you can see that sometimes he's able to interact with his family a little bit more than what we see with him just saying hello. He got a note the other day from someone in his family, and he looked back and smiled and put his fist up. He is all gray. When you're in the spillover room, you get a lot of people, especially people from out of the country or who coming, during their lunch, they just want to look at him. And they always look on the screen and they say, where is he? Where is he? And for those of us who are there, we say, just look for the gray, because he's gray on top. He's gray with his beard. Sometimes the camera is not that great. So his sweater is looking gray. It's just like a vision of white. You can at least see him kind of moving or kind of nodding his head or even passing a note. This is someone who knows his audience. I mean, so he's definitely always looking at the jury, looking back. He has a lot of interaction. There was a woman one day who was pregnant, and he asked her, "Oh, when you do, are you all right?" So he's able to verbally have conversations with people out there in the audience, especially just as he's walking in. Of course, once he sits and everything becomes formal, all we see is his back if you are in the courtroom. If you're in the spillover room, you see him from the front.
Told y'all, slight interaction. Told y'all, for people that saying he not interacting, I told y'all, this is the second time somebody said that he's slightly interacting. But once the trial starts, he's not. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Afternoon live. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
You get a lot more of an idea about what he's doing. But I remember one time, specifically, when he did have the time to talk to the judge, I think it was at the time when he said, "No, I will not be taking a stand." he told the judge, hey, you're doing a good job, which I thought was so interesting. I mean, this is a man who is always used to giving his opinions, giving his assessment, and it didn't stop at the judge where he said, Judge, hey, by the way, I think you're doing a good job.
And Candace, I kind of buried the lead on also that I know you went to school with Sean Combs at Howard. Just knowing him then, and then you see him now.
Oh, wow.
You covered him certainly as he's been a public person, but just what was your reaction when you first saw him in that environment? A little bit grayer than all of us may remember, and just from that part of knowing Sean Combs, just seeing how he's reacted and acted during this trial.
Yeah, I went to Howard with him. We had 1 year that overlapped. So I remember him just specifically a couple times being on the yard in the middle of campus, handing out flyers, doing what we know him to do now, which is sending out flyers for parties. So he was always into marketing. That's the kind of the level. Like, I remember what he had on and everything. I can see him because he was always doing these flyers. Then I covered him in 2001, the shooting trial. And I did when I worked at BET News. And that was not a gray Sean Combs. That was a confident Sean Combs, took the stand on his behalf, and many people know Jamal Shine Barrel and what happened with that. If not, it is a great Google, and there's a great documentary on Jamal Shine Barrel. So that was a little jarring even then to see the gray-haired Sean Combs. Fast forward 24 years later, back in court again, this was the most kind of surprising reaction that I had of myself, because really, he was just all gray. But he is in his 50s, and if we see him, he's obviously dyeing his hair. We saw a little bit of the gray-haired Sean Combs during COVID, right, when nobody could go and get their hair cut. But the beard and the hair, the first week he did not cut his hair, the first couple of weeks. So it was, it was puffy and not shaped. Now it is shaped. But that first image, and he has something wrong with his leg on some days where he's limping. His reading glasses are slightly thicker. So if this was someone who was sitting 4 tables down at a restaurant, you would not recognize him. So it was pretty jarring to see. And about 20, 25 pounds lost off of him. You might pass him in the street or in a restaurant. Unrecognizable in my estimation. Absolutely.
Wow, that's incredible. And speaking of the gray, I remember in the evidence pictures from his house in Miami that was raided by federal agents, not only was there the Astroglide and all that, so there was a lot of Rogaine that you just saw on the wall. Not that that was an illegal substance that they had to take, but it just kind of showed. I mean, he's 55 years old. Everybody ages, but without having those type of things in custody, it's fascinating to think of what he looks like, because so many of us have just seen sketches. I want to read another update coming in from the judge, and then our Elizabeth Milner is going to join us here in a moment, who has been in the courtroom every single day. I know all of you know her incredibly well, but this is what the judge said. He said he will send the jury a note saying, in response to the jury's question, the court refers to the jury to page 37, lines 1 through 3 of its jury charge, and then quotes the language from the instructions. This is from just an article from CNN. The word distribution means actual, constructive, or attempted transfer to distribute simply means to deliver, to pass over, or to hand over something to another person, or to cause it to be delivered, passed on, or handed over to another. Distribution does not require a sale. The judge rejected other proposed language from both prosecutors and defense attorneys. The defense had suggested referring the jury back to the full set of instructions or other parts of the charge, while prosecutors have proposed simply responding yes. So a little bit of a context to the response that we heard from the question about drug distribution that came in from the jury late yesterday. Let's get out to our Elizabeth Milner, who is live outside of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Elizabeth, we're more than 6 hours now into jury deliberations. We've seen the judge respond a bit to these jury questions. What's standing out to you?
I'm so sorry, Chris. Can you repeat that question?
Hey, good morning. Hey, just what stands out to you?
They say she's uncomfortable because at first she gave him a side kiss. Well, watch it again. Let me explain. A lot of times when a woman is with her man, a lot of times she'll kiss him on, face on like this first. With her giving him the side kiss, that's why people feel she's slightly uncomfortable. Then right now she's bobbing her head. She's trying to comfort him. Women be all up in their man. She looks like, okay, I'm here. And if she does not do what he wants, we already seen what happens. And look at his face. It's like, I got her where I want her. So a woman will be like all into her man, arm around him, this my boo, you're smiling. Now she's smiling. So she's not even smiling. Now she's smiling. So there's a back and forth. And they say this is what she would normally do. Sometimes she's happy. Sometimes she's sad. Sometimes she's under a blanket. So a person that has had situation, even with the messages, that's how he liked her to talk to him. Real talk. If the women weren't, oh, I miss you, oh, I want to see you, he didn't like the bad energy. Like the video as you guys come in. Fair use reaction clip.
You have been really busy. You're running across traffic to get to us live here, so I appreciate it. So we have the judge respond.
You guys, we're 30 away. Can I please get 30 people to subscribe and thank you? If you already subscribed, thank you. If you already hit like, thank you. We're 30 people away. Thank you for subscribing. Please subscribe. Thank you.
To the jury question that came in yesterday from related to drug distribution, what stands out to you about how the judge handled that and what the jury may be thinking about?
Yeah, it was an interesting way the judge handled it, because I think from the defense's perspective, they were really trying to get the judge to pretty much signal back to the jury that they wanted the whole instruction to kind of be taken into consideration. Whereas the judge, from his point of view, he was like, they asked a very specific question, so I'm going to give them a very specific answer. It'd be improper of me to just add more. I don't want to mislead the jury. I don't want to confuse them, any of that. And so the judge ended up saying that again. He said he didn't want to do damage to tell them to consider the instruction as a whole. The government, as you had pointed out, Chris, was saying, well, our concern is about the instruction as a whole, is whether or not they have questions about the element and not the charge as a whole. And the government saying that they were concerned if they talk about the charge as a whole, it would make it more confusing, possibly misleading. And I think there were points where, again, the defense was kind of like, okay, well, they are asking these questions. You should refer to them, for example, on page 38, lines 3 through 7. They were kind of pointing that out in the specific jury charge. But the government, again, saying that this was misleading. The judge kind of siding with the government in this particular argument, saying that, as the government noted, this relates to possession with intent to distribute, as far as the specific lines the defense is kind of pointing to during their argument. But the judge says we're going to refer upon the agreed upon language, and then they'll proceed as the court kind of said initially too. So I think the arguments were a little tense this morning, kind of from the defense's perspective, because I think that they might be possibly a little concerned at this point. But again, it might be too early to tell. Like you said, Chris, we're kind of approaching 6.5 hours of deliberations almost. We're still past the 6-hour mark. And so while it's still pretty early this morning, it seems like the jury kind of is making a little bit of headway here.
And no comment thus far. Just, to your perspective, juror number 25, who had everybody abuzz yesterday that there was suddenly, nullified, jury, and everybody, was jumping to this conclusion that this jury was going to be deadlocked from the beginning. We haven't heard anything about that juror so far today, or since that note came in around 1:30 yesterday.
Right, exactly. We haven't heard anything. I think a lot of people, again, are kind of jumping to conclusions kind of quickly, and we just don't know what all that means. This particular juror can't follow instructions. Is it a language barrier issue? Is it something else that's going on? I mean, it's a lot of instructions, a lot of legalese that this jury has to interpret, and it can be kind of confusing. So I think as far as just the interpretation of that particular note, given that they have still been going hours and hours into their deliberation, maybe it's too soon to jump to conclusions, especially since we don't know the full story.
And I know Diddy was in the courtroom. He talked to his mom briefly this morning. What stood out to you about how he's doing as these deliberations are going on?
I can only imagine how he's feeling right now, honestly, because think about it. This is really the fight for his life. I mean, the jury has his future in their hands right now as they're kind of weighing the decision whether or not the defendant will be found guilty or not guilty, whether it'll be a split verdict. We don't know, right? But in terms of just the way Diddy was looking, I can only imagine, again, what's going on through his mind. But is he going to come in and kind of look like the weight is all on his shoulders? Not necessarily. And so when he came in, he kind of did what he normally does. He smiles at his attorneys, either shakes their hands, dabs them up, gives them a hug. And of course, his mom being inside that courtroom too, I think gave him a little kind of sense of support too. And I think he was pretty happy to see his mom Janice inside that courtroom, telling her that she looks good in her outfit and to just calm down and relax a little bit, but not sure what the calm down and relax thing that he had kind of mouthed to her really kind of meant. So you can kind of take it either.
Quick question. Like we said before, guilty, not guilty, or mistrial. And the biggest question is, are you and your friends divided? Some of your friends feel he's guilty. Some of your friends feel he's not guilty. Do you think that your family is divided? Just put divided or same page. Are you and your family divided or same page? A lot of people around me feel like concerns with relationships, concerns with employees, concerns all around the board. Are you guys on the same page or divided? Let me know in the comments. Fair use reaction clip.
With that, but in terms of just seeing the support system in there, it's not the full family support. They'll probably come back once the actual decision is reached, so we might not see them every single time a notice passed, but at least you'll have some family support in there. That makes another chance.
And for you, having been in the courtroom throughout this trial, and now it's in the hands of
guilty, same page. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, let me know. Do you guys feel he's guilty, not guilty? Are your family divided or same page? Thank you for letting me know.
This jury, I know the foreman is, 31 years old feels really young for just the pressure that comes. For all these jurors, an immense amount of pressure. They know that they're inside a room and everybody's waiting to hear what they're going to say when they come out. Just what stands out to you about this jury and has stood out to you about this jury over the last 7 weeks?
Well, I think what stands out to me about this jury is just that they've been paying very close attention. It's been a lot of testimony, a lot of graphic testimony, a lot of graphic images and videos that they've had to see. But as far as them just kind of handling it for the most part in a very professional way, I've definitely seen that. Obviously, there was kind of the hiccup.
Okay, thanks for telling me about that.
Ended up being dismissed, but it feels like even with that dismissal of the juror,
guilty, but not with these charges. Thanks for that. Didn't do it. Take. Okay. Let's continue. Guilty, not guilty. Same page. Not on the same page. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Please subscribe, you guys. 30 more people. We're almost there. Please subscribe. 30 more people. We're almost there.
A couple weeks ago, that they still haven't really kind of, that the jury still kind of is showing up every day. They're showing up, they're ready, they are doing their part, they are doing their civic duty. But I was telling one of the other reporters inside the courtroom, I kind of feel like everybody interprets the juror's body language kind of like an episode of The Traitors US, where every single thing that they do, you know, everything is overanalyzed at this point, where if a juror is smiling, it could mean one thing.
Okay, not guilty.
We don't know them personally, we're not allowed to talk to them. But I think a lot of people are anxious to see what their decision will be. But I think a lot of people are also kind of picking up on any type of body language that they may have as they come into the courtroom. We haven't seen them this morning. We only saw them when they were released at the end of the day yesterday. And if they don't come to a decision today, it'll kind of be the same process today. So we'll see what they look like eventually, possibly when they come either to a decision or when they're released at the end of the day today.
Traitors US, outstanding poll. Great reference here, 953.
It's such a great show.
Such a good show. Such a good show. Elizabeth, I'll tell you that Andre Philippe says Elizabeth low-key the MVP. I agree, but also I'd say unanimous. Unanimous, you have my vote in the MVP voting when all of this is done. Also have a question coming in from Miss Max. I know we talked about Diddy's mom being there. Miss Max asks, are Diddy's relatives present this morning? Who else is in the courtroom?
Good question of who's there this morning. Fair use reaction clip.
So as far as who all is in the courtroom today, it's a lot smaller than we've seen in previous days, especially for closing arguments, jury instructions. So his entire family isn't there when I was last inside that courtroom. But I did just see his mother, Janice, there, and of course his kind of PR reps too, and I think a family friend or a godmother, that type of kind of figure inside the courtroom. But I haven't seen his children when I was there earlier. But who knows, maybe they'll come back today, or they'll just kind of wait until a decision is made and then they'll all come back. Because normally we see a swarm of people all go to the Sprinter van whenever the family comes, and I don't think we've seen that chaos yet this morning. But it's still kind of a small amount of support system, but I'm sure that his family is giving him love from afar too.
All right, Elizabeth Milner for us live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. I know you're keeping a close eye on those jury deliberations, and you'll be on with Jesse Weber a couple hours from now around noon. And of course, if we hear a verdict, perhaps unlikely today, but if we do, you'll be one of the first people that we'll talk to. Elizabeth Milner, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, because it can't be easy for his family. Days in and days out, just sitting there for hours, 4 to 5 hours. They get a break, they get a lunch break. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
And as we wrap up this hour of live stream coverage, I want to bring our panel back, Candace Kelly, Serena Townsend, to get your final thoughts. And thus far, through, I guess, almost a day and a half of jury deliberations, Candace, I'll start with you. How do you see this ending? First off, and I know we talked about when you might think that we could see a verdict, but specifically, if you had to guess, guilty, not guilty on these counts, how's it going to go?
Well, it really depends if the jurors decide to follow the letter of the law. I think that if they do that, it won't be a good feeling for some of them to say, yes, RICO is something that we've achieved. But if they follow the black letter of the law, which some of them may not, we know that it's going to be RICO. That's what I believe. That it will be RICO, it will be all of the accounts. Because when you look at the coercion...
Right now, we're listening to the law crimes, a young lady that actually went to school with Diddy years ago when they were younger. So she is on law crimes speaking. Fair use reaction clip.
You have so many clear examples. We can just go with the whole the video and the fact that that was a freak-off going on. You can get the coercion. You can get to all the elements. Do I think that they will actually do that? You know, that is just up to the jury. I am not sure, but if they are following the black letter of the law, they'll be convicted on everything, in my estimation. As we talked about the witnesses, there are a lot of people who corroborated each other. I just don't see it going any other way when it comes to extortion and bribery specifically. That's how I see it unfolding.
And Serena, for you, not only how do you see this playing out as far as the verdict, but when it comes to a potential sentencing phase, what type of time? And I know it could be life in prison if he's convicted of all of it and he hits the maxes, but also what goes into determining what Sean Combs' sentence could be if he's found guilty of these charges?
So I happen to agree. I think if the jury actually goes with the letter of the law and they credit the testimony that they heard, I do think that they come back with guilty on all 3 counts. I think Rigo is the one that they're going to struggle with the most, and that's the one that we might not see a verdict on at all. If even a guilty or not guilty, we may get a hung on that one. But I do think technically the proof is there for all 3. As for sentencing, he's facing a lot of time, and there's not much wiggle room with respect to where he could go. If he is found guilty of really any of these crimes, he's facing at least double digits, possibly life. And there's essentially a standard that the judge has to follow with respect to the threshold of where he could be sentenced. And I don't really see a downward departure from that threshold, meaning I don't think that a judge is going to be lenient on him, and I don't think a judge is going to depart from the standards to give him a break. Some of this will also depend, by the way, on what the offers were. We don't necessarily know.
Okay, hold on. Remember how Gina was MIA? She was spotted shopping. TMZ found Gina. So it's interesting, Gina didn't resurface. She's resurfacing after the jury's deliberating. Nobody's really seen her out and about. She's in a spot where TMZ is, maybe planned, maybe not. But remember how Gina was supposed to allegedly take the stand and then she went MIA? Some are wondering, we don't know, what made her not take the stand. Remember, they were trying to reach out to her attorney. They were trying to reach out to her, and she didn't take the stand. Now she resurfacing. TMZ got her. Remember how when we first started talking, I said I needed to tell y'all something, but I needed to wait to find out from a source? I finally was waiting for TMZ to post it. They finally posted it 2 hours ago. So go look at the video from TMZ when we're done. I'm wondering if she took a plea. If she took a bribe, I don't know. But Gina resurfaced. And go back and watch TK's video of Gina and what she talked about regarding Diddy. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
I don't think we have been told what the prosecutors offered Diddy pre-trial. Now, a lot of times, if you get an offer pre-trial and you reject that offer and you choose to go to trial and lose, it's almost impossible to get those numbers again. It's almost impossible to see those numbers again. A judge is typically going to sentence you to more than what you were offered before. So I think, I think if he's found guilty, we're going to be seeing very high numbers here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Do have the results of our final poll that we'll be talking about this hour. What do you think is taking the jury so long? People are antsy. They want an answer to how this is going to go. They're divided 37%, complex evidence 29%. Who knows at 18%, which may be the most accurate answer, to be honest. And then playing it safe at 13%. We appreciate the more than 2.1 thousand of you who joined us for that poll. And I also appreciate Serena Townsend, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, and Candace Kelly, legal analyst and professor of media law at Rowan University in New Jersey. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Outstanding analysis, and we'll see how this plays.
It looks like Sean Combs' mom showed up today. She's in like a white and green outfit, matching outfit, top and bottom. So the mom did show up today. I'm not certain if the kids are there. I'm just seeing a video of the mom. Fair use reaction clip.
It's out. Before we go, I do want to let you know about the second season of Law and Crime's hit podcast. You've probably been listening to it already, The Rise and Fall of Diddy. It's hosted by our own Jesse Weber. It is back. The third episode dropped today exclusively on Wondery Plus, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. But for now, we're going to give you a teaser. Check it out.
Nope, we can't do the teaser. But I think Law Crimes is doing a great job covering the case. Real talk. They've done an amazing job. Hold on one second.
By the way, these are all defense attorneys.
Fair
As
use.
they huddle back by gallery, a USA
Fair use reaction clip. Okay, you guys, have we hit 39K? You guys, we just need 30 people to hit subscribe and thank you. 30 people to hit subscribe and thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Comey turns and confirms with Combs' Xavier Donaldson seated in the middle table. Door to holding cell half opens. U.S. Marshal checking to see if it's time to bring Sean Combs out. Eventually, Sean Combs has now been brought out, and his lead lawyer, Mark Ignifilo, is talking with him. Shapiro and Westmoreland are working together on something on Shapiro's laptop. So it seems like everyone is involved here. And Elizabeth, I'm going to toss to you for this next question about all of it, too. As far as Diddy being included in all of this, I know I was asking our reporter, Elizabeth Milner. That's kind of what we say here at Law and Crime. Reporter Elizabeth or lawyer Elizabeth. So including both of you in this. I was asking reporter Elizabeth, where is Diddy during all of this, as we're waiting during deliberations? And she says he is in a holding cell nearby. But whenever there's anything, we got to bring him back out and make sure that he's included. Is that right, lawyer Elizabeth?
Right, that's correct. So let's say if there was any sort of question that was brought forward by the jury, if there's any sort of sidebar, like we call it, not the sidebar with Jesse Weber, but sidebar meaning conversations between both sides of counsel and the judge, then he has the right to be there. Again, this is his case. He has the right to representation and to a fair trial. So that's typically when they would bring him out. I did get a little excited when you mentioned that they were bringing him out because I thought, could they have a possible verdict already? It's still kind of a little bit early. It's only the second day. So I'd be surprised if they came up with something this fast. But yes, so basically anytime there's any sort of conferring with the judge and counsel, he would be brought in because he has the right to know, obviously, what's going on with his case.
It's so funny. Whenever we get an update, initially what it says is that the jurors have a note. And so immediately everyone's like, okay, is it a verdict? Is it go time? What is it? And then, of course, we learn maybe 20 minutes later what it actually is. But you're right, Elizabeth. We all want to know what is going on with the jurors. And I know that our viewers want to know, too. For those of you just tuning in, make sure to send us any of your questions into the chat. We've gotten some really good ones so far. This one is from Carrie RD. What is verdict watch? And this is a quick explainer I can just give. Right now, we're in verdict watch, meaning that the jury is in deliberations. They're talking, conferring about whatever they may be discussing that we may or may never know about. And so right now we're watching and waiting for a verdict. And that's why we're doing this live coverage, because throughout verdict watch, there are updates such as this. Right now, the jurors want a couple of transcripts from prior testimony. And so we're here to give you updates. It could kind of give us a clue as to what way perhaps jurors are thinking. Are they close to wrapping up deliberation? Is there a hung jury? I mean, there's so many different options. So that's what verdict watch is. And welcome to Law and Crime's Verdict Watch. We're happy to have you here. I have another question. This one is from Jesse Davin. Question: does the court reporter read back the testimony in a monotone voice? How do they review testimony? I think it depends on the court reporter. Elizabeth, what is your experience?
It depends on the court reporter, but also what happens every single day of trial is that the court, and God bless the court reporters out there because it's not an easy job, but basically they're responsible for transcribing everything that happens each day of trial. And at the end of trial, they have to prepare that transcript, right? And it's disseminated. Obviously, it's disseminated amongst some members of the media. Counsel gets a copy. So each day you get a copy of that transcript. So thankfully, if the judges want to go back and look at pieces of testimony, they have that there and they don't necessarily have to go to the court reporter. And if they wish to do so, then she can. But it would probably be a lot easier if they could just ask for references from the trial transcript, and that's why we have amazing court reporters. That's really their job.
Oh, I'm so thankful for court reporters all over, specifically in this case, because it is a federal trial. So unfortunately, we can't live stream what's going on inside the courtroom. Obviously, in any sort of court situation, we can't live stream what's going on as far as deliberations. But in other trials, in some states, we can live stream all of the testimony, the openings and closings. We do it right here on Law and Crime. The difference with this case, however, is that it's federal. So there are simply no cameras allowed.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the one part where they're asking.
Cassie, of course,
asking questions. Hold on.
Influencing the decision. Is it his legal team or is it him?
Fair use. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
Chose not to testify. Was that really his legal team convincing him? Okay, this is not a great idea. Because I could imagine someone like Sean Combs would think, okay, I'm going to get up on that stand, testify, I'm going to prove everyone wrong, and maybe his legal team dissuading him. Again, this is all speculation. But in terms of not pleading guilty, we don't know, who influenced that decision. I think the reason is that largely it was him possibly believing I could disprove these charges. This is not what happened. I have enough to show that this was all consensual or whatever the fact may be. So it could have been just down to him saying, I refuse to plead guilty to this. It could, possibly be his team also encouraging that and saying, we can disprove what the prosecution is saying. But of course, ultimately the decision of whether to plead guilty or not is up to the client with the attorneys advising him. So I think the biggest reason is someone like Holmes, who's again, larger than life personality, has gotten allegedly away with a lot, within his career, could have the standing of saying, I can disprove these charges. I'm not pleading guilty.
You brought up a really important point there in that it's up to the defendant, Sean Combs, in all of this to decide most of it. I mean, I'm sure he's discussing with his defense team saying, should I take the plea? What are the pros and cons in all of this? But again, to your point, Elizabeth, it's up to him which way he wants to go, guilty or not guilty. It's up to him if he wants to testify. So really, Sean Combs has this dream team of his own, let's say, that is helping him and kind of saying, here's what we plan to do, here's what it is.
Update from the court. It's being reported, Diddy trial, deliberation, day 2. The jury is asking the judge for Cassie's testimony and transcripts. Allegedly, the jurors are asking for Cassie Ventura's testimony and transcripts. Also, regarding the deliberation, juries in the Diddy trial want to look deeply into 4 more pieces of evidence. So outside, they're allegedly looking for 4 more pieces of evidence and allegedly the transcripts in regards to Cassie's testimony. That's what's being reported. We had heard we might hear a few leaks in regards to what they're seeking or what they're asking for. We had heard that. So to see that that's being talked about. And let me give my source. Forbes is the ones that's saying that they're asking for Cassie's transcripts. That was 44 minutes ago from Forbes. In regards to people asking for 4 more pieces of evidence, that's coming from People. I always try and cite my sources, so that way people will say, where did she see that at? Where did she find that at? So that's coming from People and Forbes magazine. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
He's really the one calling the shots, as it should be for the defendant. So a lot of what we're doing is a collaboration. It's got to be with Diddy and his team. Now, I have another question. This one is from Peggy O. How can transcripts be questionable? Give the jury whatever they want. And I'm going to talk to you for this one, Elizabeth, and ask about this, because for those of you who are just joining us, we broke in for live coverage right now because there has been a jury question during deliberations, and they asked for transcripts from 2 witnesses. Now, we're not sure which one is which. I tend to agree with Peggy, though, Elizabeth. I mean, these jurors can ask for the transcripts, right? I mean, that's helpful in their deliberations, right?
Absolutely. They can ask for transcripts. They can ask to see certain portions of evidence again. I would be a little worried if they did.
See, we just talked about that. Fair use reaction clip.
Because again, this is a trial that went on for weeks and weeks. There was a lot of evidence, numerous witnesses, cross-examinations, lots of video evidence that unfortunately wasn't released to the media. But we know just from reading what was going on in the trial that the jurors were allowed to see videos, video evidence of alleged freak-offs, things like that. So jurors are absolutely entitled to go back, ask for certain portions of the transcript to see, you know, what the testimony was, what the evidence was. They can go back and ask those questions. And, you know, it's their obligation to make a fully sound verdict based on, you know, unbiased reasoning. So it makes sense why they're going to go back and ask for certain pieces of evidence again. And I think we're going to see that happen for however long the deliberations take, just because of how long this trial was, how much information was out there, and how much actual physical evidence there was.
And we're nearing 8 hours worth of deliberations at this point. Now, some people this morning when I was on Chris Stewart were like, what is taking so long? I can't believe it. And I tend to feel like we haven't had that long of a deliberation yet. I mean, 8 hours after 8 weeks of, you know, coming to courthouse every day and hearing testimony and seeing evidence and things like that. What do you feel, Elizabeth? Do you think 8 hours is long or short in relation?
8 hours is not long, because they had told us it could be 2 or 3 days, 4 days. They could go past the holiday if they want to. Fair use reaction clip. Like the video, like the video. If I could please get 30 more people to please subscribe. We're almost there, you guys. 30 more people to hit subscribe. We're almost there. Some of the people may already be subscribed, so thanks for being here, everyone. Hello, is this Ryan? Is this my favorite Ryan? Fair use reaction clip.
This trial as a whole.
So I don't think it's long. And I know a lot of people out there will say this is taking too long because they just want to know what the verdict will be. Again, given the amount of evidence and how long this trial has been, remember, it started back in May. We're in July now, officially July 1st. You know, the rule that...
And let me know in the comments. Do you think he's guilty, not guilty, mistrial? Are you and your family on the same page or divided? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
A lot of attorneys and legal experts say is that for every week of testimony, there should be ideally a day of jury deliberations, or that's how it's typically gone on.
Okay.
So here there's been multiple weeks of deliberations. I do think there's a chance that the jury will render a verdict this week before the 4th of July holiday. So given how many weeks of testimony that is, and again, it's not a hard concrete rule, right? For every week of testimony, there's a day of jury deliberations, but that's typically how we've seen it play out in a lot of these cases, especially high profile cases.
Do you think they'll come to a decision before the holiday, or do you think they'll have to come back? Let me know in the comments.
Where there's a lot at stake for the defendant. So a lot of people are saying this is taking too long, and I understand why. We all want to know what the verdict is, but I don't actually think it's taking super long. I think if they were to come up with a decision before the 4th of July holiday, I think that would actually be fairly quick, but I could see that happening.
I do have a couple more updates for all of you. Number one, that Janice Combs is in the courtroom. We talked about during all of this that the defense is conferring with the prosecution. They're talking. We reported on them passing notes. That P. Diddy was...
Yep, told you she's in the courtroom. She's got a white and green outfit on with kind of like a blondish, yellowish wig on. Fair use reaction clip.
Escorted into the room with U.S. Marshals, and Janice Combs is in there too. So we have that going. By the way, thank you again to all of our live viewers who have been chatting and writing questions. We have some viewers from as far as the United Kingdom, so all over the world. And a lot of you participated in a poll that we put up. So I want to read the results for you now. This is almost 2,000 of you participated in this. So thank you for that. Here's the question. What do you think the recent juror note about reviewing transcripts signifies? Okay, 51% of you say weighing key testimony. 35% of you say possible confusion, and 12% of you say stall tactic. Interesting,
Ooh.
A potential stall tactic. I don't know what I think about that.
Do you think anybody's stalling? Fair use reaction clip. That's a good question.
Elizabeth, I have another question for you from one of our viewers. They were asking, do you think this signifies we're wrapping up, that we're almost near the end? Okay, they want to review these court transcripts from some of these witnesses, and then we're kind of nearing the close. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we're at the actual close. A lot of times in previous trials, what I've seen is when the jurors do ask to see a key piece of transcript, typically a decision follows pretty closely after, because sometimes that could mean they're just trying to double check something. Again, jurors are taking notes all day long from this testimony, but no laptops, no phones are allowed in the federal court building, so they're taking all these notes ideally by hand. So it's impossible just to get everything. So I think a lot of what we've seen in other cases is juries kind of coming to a decision. They're checking their notes, but they might want another piece of information that they didn't get in their notes to double check, and then they come to a decision quickly after.
Yeah.
It could be that here, but again, it could also go completely the other way, where maybe there are some jurors that are on the fence about certain charges, some that are not. We had heard that one of the members of the jury had told the judge, we think one of the jurors is having a bit of trouble following the judge's instructions, so that might have been a little bit of a hint about possible, not necessarily discord, but maybe one side of the jury feels one way, the other feels another. And remember, there's different charges that are on the table. The O.J. Simpson case as an example, right? It was either guilty or not guilty on the charges that were put forward. Murder charge. Here, there's different aspects of play. There's the racketeering, there's the sex trafficking. So it could mean that maybe a decision is close, but what I think is more likely happening is that they are trying to double check certain key pieces of testimony to make sure, are we all on the same page with all of these different charges that are on.
Continue to hit the like button, you guys, and thank you. Continue to hit the like button and thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. We're 30 away from 39K. Please subscribe and thank you.
Table, and that's not easy to do. There's a lot of, with all the evidence that has gone forward, and a lot of people feel a certain way about if he should be convicted. It's a lot of charges that are on the table, and to get multiple people all on the same page, it takes time.
I agree. We're almost at 8 hours of deliberation, and I keep saying this, but I really do think that it shows that the jurors are taking their job seriously, that they're going through, they're talking things out. And by the way, that question about whether this juror note or question regarding these two witness transcripts, could that signify the end of a verdict? I want to make sure to shout out the person who asked that. It was Rapper Trials who wrote that in. We've just been getting so many questions. I'm overwhelmed, but I love it, you guys, so keep them coming. This is another question. It is from Elisa Ray. What is the reason for the second witness being a Jane Doe not revealing her identity like other witnesses? Because of course, when we're talking about the key witnesses in all of this, we have Cassandra Ventura. We know her name. We saw her face in the sketches. She was there. But then we also have Mia, the former assistant, and Jane Doe, who was Diddy's former girlfriend or love interest. And both of them, in the courtroom sketches, we don't see their face. Both of them testified under pseudonyms, Mia and Jane. Elizabeth, what do you make of that? And I'm going to throw this out there. The fact that they were talking about things so traumatic, they were hoping to kind of conceal their identity or keep it private, right?
That's exactly right. So the key piece of difference that separates Cassie from these other alleged victims was Cassie filed a civil lawsuit in November 2023, before all of this happened. And I think it's easy for people to forget that because, the indictment and everything that's happened, it's been over a year. But this all really stemmed from the November 2023 civil lawsuit that Cassie filed against Sean Combs, alleging a lot of the same things, saying that she alleges she was sex trafficked, that, her former boyfriend's car was blown up, all of these allegations against Combs. So she had already come forward publicly about that, and people knew who she was. They knew the context of their relationship. So her identity was always going to be revealed in the trial because she had come out with that civil lawsuit a year before. So, obviously when Cassie Ventura testified, we didn't see inside the courtroom. Unfortunately, there's no cameras in federal court, but we all knew what she testified to and what she said. The other alleged female victims, they hadn't come forward with a civil lawsuit. And that's one of the things that the prosecution really tried to hit home, because one of the things that the defense was saying was, Cassie Ventura is, of course, going to testify as to these things. She got a $20 million settlement from Combs. But these other unnamed alleged female victims didn't file any sort of lawsuit. They're not pursuing any sort of monetary damages against him. So their identity was kept private. I could understand why none of them would want to come forward with their identity because, like you said, they're testifying as to really allegedly traumatic incidents, and that's difficult for a lot of people, So I think those are the two key differences. They hadn't come forward in the way Cassie did, and also, if they don't want to reveal their identity and who they are, then the jury and everyone else is expected to respect that privacy. And there's a lot of speculation online as to who they could be, but again, you can't report on it as fact because they haven't come forward themselves.
Segue, talking about Cassie, to talk about the court update that I have for you. We now officially know what two witnesses the jurors were asking for testimony from. Here's the update. The judge says, Judge Arun Subramanian, we've received a note from the jury asking for testimony of Cassandra Ventura as to the Intercontinental and Cannes incident and the Daniel Phillips Essex Hotel incident, Daniel Phillips' testimony on that as well. So here's the response. Maureen Comey says, we have a disagreement. Not surprising in all of this. The judge says, first, let me know if either side minds me bringing the jury out and speaking to them. Now, Comey says, we don't see a need. Whereas Mark Agnifilo says, I confirmed with Mr. Combs and we don't see a need either. So judge says, as to any further note, let me know. So Elizabeth, we now know we're talking about Cassie Ventura and Daniel Phillip as far as these incidents. What do you make? Does that give us any sort of clue as to where the deliberations are now?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's tough to say exactly what they're going to use that key piece of evidence for in terms of making a decision. I'm not surprised that it did relate to Cassie. And then also, again, Daniel Phillip was one of the witnesses that was put forward. He testified to a lot of things that he allegedly saw happen between Cassie and Diddy, alleged abuse, things like that. So the fact that they're going to what Cassie had testified to, especially in relation to that hotel video, it doesn't surprise me just because, again, she's such a key witness. That's such a big piece of key evidence in the case. So that doesn't surprise me. Also, again, having multiple witnesses that can possibly corroborate what she first testified to in the first beginning weeks of trial. I think, to me, if you're specifically asking about that, it seems like that might go towards possible racketeering charges, because again, there's so many acts that could underlay racketeering, abuse, things like that. So it could possibly be, are they having a struggle trying to see if the elements have been met for racketeering?
Please subscribe, you guys. We're now only 20 away. Please subscribe. We're only 20 away from 39K. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Thank you guys for subscribing. We're almost there. 20 more people to subscribe, and thank you.
It could also be possibly going to the sex trafficking charges. Again, that's a really big piece of what Cassie's being used as a witness for, and these other alleged female victims, them saying they were forced to engage in intercourse with these male escorts, and therefore sex trafficking is present. So I think it could be either one of those things. But again, the fact that it's in relation to Cassie doesn't surprise me, because she's just such a huge witness in all of this.
Some say it may go to the weekend. What do you guys think? Do you think they'll finish up before the holiday? Or do you think they just want to be over with and done with it? They just want to be able, and this is the other thing too. You got to realize they've been up there, 6 weeks? And over the holiday, they can be with their family, talk how they want, and they don't have to separate themselves from the family. So they may want to make a decision just so they can relax and be done with it, and instead of going back to court. They may just want to be with their family, relax, and just shut it down. Because just think about it. And if they can't, they have to come back after the holiday. But the judge was really wanting to make sure it was over before the holiday. But if they got to come back, they got to come back. What do you guys think? Guilty? Not guilty? Are you and your family divided? Not divided? And do you think that there'll be a mistrial? Guilty, not guilty, mistrial. Are you and your family feeling the same or divided? Fair use reaction clip. We're only 20 away, you guys. Please subscribe. There's about 179 in the building. If I can please get 79 people to subscribe, we'll hit 39K. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
When we first got the information that there was some sort of question from the jurors about witness testimony.
You feel he's guilty?
We're like, okay, it's got to be Cassie, right? And it seems like it was. And we do have that more information. They want Cassie, they want Daniel Phillip, and then that's it. I mean, to your point, Elizabeth, everything you were just talking about, there's so many different ways that it could go, because again, Cassie was the star witness. She testified about so many other things. Now, I do have another update from the courtroom. This is AUSA Johnson.
Another update.
She says, we have a disagreement about the redirect and the can incident and the events immediately following. The answer was to what happened when Sean was angry. It referred to the freak-off that occurred upon landing in New York. Now, the judge later says, I would likely cut it off sooner. And then Garagos from Diddy's team says, I have nothing to add. AUSA Johnson responds by saying, we may need to speak with the court about the Intercontinental. Judge says, let my deputy know when you're ready and I'll come back. So it seems to me that both sides, defense, prosecution, are going to kind of talk about these two things, discuss, hopefully come to some sort of agreement. Then they'll, discuss that with the judge, bring it back to him, and then maybe there would be a response for the jury. Meanwhile, we're almost at 8 hours of deliberation, you guys. So a lot happening here. For now, I'm going to sign off live from the Southern District of Manhattan. We have a lot more to cover here. Again, 8 hours of deliberation and more to come, which, by the way, in the next half hour, we'll be back with Jesse Weber to break all of this down and talk about it even more.
So let's get to where they break down more questions. Fair use reaction clip.
Parent is the coach of your T-ball
Fair
team.
use reaction clip.
They don't want to put you out first because they don't want to show any sort of favoritism. And so I have heard, especially from our other guests here on Law and Crime, that sometimes when there is some sort of celebrity who's the defendant, perhaps maybe the judge is a little...
Hold on, be patient. This was where I wanted to be. Fair use reaction clip. I found it. Okay, yep, I found it. Fair use reaction clip.
But also mind you, Jesse, that it's likely that...
This is where I was out and about and saying, I got to get home. I got to get home. They got to know. There's an attorney on Law Crimes, good dude, solid dude. He's answering a lot of questions. He's giving you the TTT. Top fan. I guess there's like a top fan. I'm now seeing that. What does a top fan mean? Can somebody tell me that in the comment? Because I see top fan and there's a crown. I've never had that before. I saw it in the chat. Any super chats are welcome, you guys. Any super chats are welcome. We're only 20 away from 39K. Fair use reaction clip. Fair use reaction clip.
Defendant is reading these jury notes, these jury messages before we're even learning what they actually contain, because the lawyers, they get these messages first from the jury, so that way they can work everything out, they can think about their arguments, all of that stuff. So I'm sure if there was any type of questions that had concern for the defense, he's probably hearing about that in probably a private holding cell, probably digesting it then, and then when he comes out, sees the rest of us, he's probably putting on a strong face, especially for his family. I don't think he's putting on a strong face for us in the press, but I think as far as the support system goes, he's not going to show.
You guys, we're 15 away. Please subscribe. We're 15 away. Please subscribe and thank you.
To my what I'm seeing inside the courtroom kind of show any type of wavering in terms of just looking mad or looking annoyed or looking mad or concerned or any of that sort. So it's pretty hard to read him at this point, but I'm sure a lot's going through his mind, especially as more and more questions keep coming out.
Let's talk about that real quick. When I was reading that the jurors had asked for Ventura's testimony,
he's about to give to the panel. Just give it 3 minutes. He's about to get to the panel.
Benny, regarding interactions, freak-offs with Daniel Phillip, and Phillip's testimony regarding the Essex Hotel incident with Ventura. What jumped out to you about that? What do you think the jurors are trying to get a little bit more information about?
Well, it's interesting, Jesse, because I think if you think about the first question, it kind of had to do with RICO conspiracy, and now they're asking kind of things that pertain to sex trafficking. And I think in part two, to count two that's been alleged in the indictment. And so I think there's specific questions about Cassie and the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie at Can, I know I always mispronounce it, and then the events that immediately followed afterwards, and plus Cassie's testimony in regards to the interaction with Daniel Phillip at a freak-off at her apartment.
Hold on.
Plus the Essex Hotel.
Hold on.
Being a leader in the jury deliberation rooms.
Or anything like that. So just
hold on.
Conspiracy, the judge.
Hold on.
During their closing argument, as they were talking about why alleged victims don't leave, why they continue to stay, or even just that fear of leaving in general. So I think that they did a good job explaining it. It's all about how the jury's kind of interpreting it, though, because I'm sure that's a question in their mind, as it's been kind of a question in a lot of viewers' minds too. So I think the government did a good job, but again, it's up to the jury to talk about, or excuse me, to deliberate on whether or not they kind of agree too.
Elizabeth, what are the flavors of the Mr. Softy truck behind you? I see they might have vanilla, they might have Oreo as well.
He's so funny.
Sorry, I got distracted. It's sorry, I see ice cream.
There's a Mr. Softy truck behind me. I got excited.
If they played the music right now, we're doing great. Okay, we got a super chat question from Christina Lester. This is so kind, Christina. Please just tell Elizabeth how...
People are saying she looks uncomfortable because at times she's smiling, then not smiling. Smiling, then not smiling. If you're with your boo babe, I'm constantly smiling. I got a glow on my face. I'm smiling. My arms are wrapped around him. They're saying her body language, and at times she's smiling, not smiling. You got to realize he expected her to act like this, period. We saw what happened when she didn't do what he wanted, and we've heard what happened. Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip. And this is just their body language and what they do. Yeah, some are saying it's a fake smile. Yeah, and then remember, there was times she tried to get away. And not only was he calling for her to come back, his bodyguards was calling for her to come back, and KK was calling for her to come back. So, and think about it. She tried to date other people, and he didn't like it. She tried to date other people and see what else is out there, and he didn't like it. Let's continue. Fair use, reaction clip.
Awesome. It's been to watch her grow on this channel, so confident and beaming.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, that's so nice. Like, I know, truly the viewer support has just been so overwhelmingly nice. Like, I never know if you guys are going to like us or anything like that. So just the overwhelming support has truly been phenomenal. And we do look at a lot of your guys' comments. So I want to thank you all for watching, sticking with us being kind of your destination for all things Diddy and all things Diddy trial. So we love you all here at Long Drive.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, here comes the panel, y'all.
Elizabeth, a big thanks to you and all.
Here comes the panel.
Great job. Do you think the trial would give a reason for other celebrities to rethink their lifestyle? That's an interesting question.
That is a good question. That's a great question, actually. I think, a lot of celebrities might want to consider their actions. We're seeing just so many kind of court cases come about. When you go back to Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, we've seen civil complaints or civil lawsuits filed against legends like Smokey Robinson. Now we're seeing the Diddy trial. Because remember, Jesse, when we had first started reporting on Cassie's lawsuit, and then that was settled, and just more lawsuits came, that I think a lot of other celebrities should consider, I think, one, the way that they're treating others, especially the way that they're treating women, whether or not that their actions do constitute and possibly criminal actions or just terrible choices maybe too. But I think a lot of people, it's not even just celebrities, a lot of people need to kind of maybe, maybe take a little class or two just about their actions and how their actions definitely could have consequences. But we'll see if this is just the beginning or whether or not, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, other celebrities are going to be named. Like that wasn't even the case in this particular trial. It related to victim one and victim two, that being Cassie and Jane.
There was that testimony from Jane, right, about this other rapper who had a girlfriend or a wife and they were part of the lifestyle. And I think the point was from the defense, you got somebody else who might be
the other rapper. The courts did everything they could to keep that rapper anonymous, but they named who Cassie liked. Did y'all catch that, T? Whoever Cassie was interested in, they name dropped those people. Yes, they did. Who did they name that she liked? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
engaging in the same thing, right? Why is that person not being brought up on sex trafficking charges? So I thought that was interesting when you think about it. I did want to ask you this. What is Diddy's vibe been like? Every time he's entered into the court, what does he look like? Does he seem nervous? Has he been taking notes? What is his interaction with attorneys? Any behavioral things you've taken note of?
I've definitely been noticing he's been reading a lot since the jury went back to start their deliberations. Because obviously, when I'm outside here, everyone's outside kind of reports and stuff like that. Diddy's not inside the courtroom. He's going back to, I think, what it's considered to be a holding cell, where he even told his attorneys that he just wanted to take a couple books back. And so when we see him come out of the kind of where he's been held up at.
Yeah, why they deliberate? Diddy's in like a holding cell. And then if there's a question that he has to answer, he'll come out of the holding cell. He'll be a part of the conversation. Once they're done regarding the conversation, he goes back to the holding cell. Fair use reaction clip.
And when kind of he sees some of his attorneys, he sees his family, he sees the entire courtroom in the gallery. I think one, he's happy to see his family. That's something that I've definitely been taking note of. But in terms of just his maybe possible nerves, they're not showing necessarily all over his face. But also, mind you, Jesse, that it's likely that the defendant is reading these jury notes, these jury messages before we're even learning what they actually contain. Because the lawyers, they get these messages first from the jury, so that way they can work everything out. They can think about their arguments, all of that stuff. So I'm sure if there was any type of questions that had concern for the defense, he's probably hearing about that in probably a private holding cell, probably digesting it then. And then when he comes out, sees the rest of us, he's probably, putting on a strong face, especially for his family. I don't think he's putting on a strong face for us in the press, but I think as far as the support system goes, he's not going to show, to my, what I'm seeing inside the courtroom, kind of show any type of wavering in terms of just looking mad or looking annoyed or looking mad or concerned or any of that sort. So it's pretty hard to read him at this point, but I'm sure a lot's going through his mind, especially as more and more questions keep coming out.
Let's talk about that real quick. When I was reading that the jurors had asked for Ventura's testimony, if any, regarding interactions, freak-offs with Daniel Phillip, and Phillip's testimony regarding the Essex Hotel incident with Ventura, what jumped out to you about that? What do you think the jurors are trying to get a little bit more information about?
Well, it's interesting, Jesse, because I think if you think about the first question, it kind of had to do with RICO conspiracy, and now they're asking kind of things that pertain to sex trafficking. And I think in part two, to count two that's been alleged in the indictment. And so I think there are specific questions about Cassie and the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie at Cannes, I know I always mispronounce it, and then the events that immediately followed afterwards, and plus Cassie's testimony in regards to the interaction with Daniel Phillip at a freak-off at her apartment, plus the Essex Hotel incident with Cassie and Daniel Phillip. I think their questions are very specific, and it's interesting too, Jesse, because I was sitting by one of the reporters inside, and I was going back through my notes even from just closing arguments, and the prosecution pointed out these specific instances in their closing argument. The Intercontinental Hotel that happened in March 5th of 2016. They showed an exhibit photo of Cassie at the Cannes Film Festival, and then they even specifically talked about a particular freak-off where Sean Combs had punched Cassie and then kind of forced her to do a freak-off even after being physically violent with her. And so I'm wondering, a lot of people are talking about testimony and how far back it goes, but it seems like the jury really kind of took heed to the closing argument. And I think what's also interesting too, Jesse, is the whole Instagram post that's also going to go back to the jury too. Something that's still on Cassie Ventura's Instagram page even to this day. Just
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Support that she had gotten after the Intercontinental Hotel surveillance video was released by CNN just last year, where she said in part, "Thank you all for the love and support from my family, friends, strangers, and those that I have yet to meet. The outpouring of love has created a place for my younger self to settle and feel safe now." But this is only the beginning. Domestic violence is the issue. She capitalizes.
Hey. We hit 39K, you guys. Can I please get 10 people to keep us at 39K? We hit 39K. Yay. Let's say congratulations in the comments. We hit 39K. Can I please get 10 more people to please subscribe and keep us at 39K? Thank goodness. 10 months ago, we had 3,000 subscribers, 4,000 subscribers. Now we're at 39K. Yes. Thank you for subscribing. Thanks for tuning into our channel. We appreciate you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Yay.
It broke me down to someone I never thought I would become. So that's just in part of what the message reads. But it's also interesting because the defense pointed out the specific IG message. So it really seems like the jury really kind of took in what was said in the closing arguments, and now it seems like they'll be getting kind of the testimony from the few days before, the few days after, and they're going to get this Instagram post too that's going to be sent back with them. So it's interesting that the specific question too.
Yeah, they're definitely considering the evidence after all these hours. I think the deliberation is going to last quite some time, and it's very hard to gauge where the jurors are right now, what they might be thinking. By the way, the ice cream music did hit as well. I couldn't have planned that better. All right.
You heard it. Good.
Oh, I heard it. All right. Before I let you go, we got a super chat question. We got a super chat question from Augusto USA. Thank you so much. Hello, Elizabeth. I would like to know if Sean Combs has VIP treatment at his cell. Thank you. You guys rock. Congratulations. So sweet. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I think in terms of in his cell, I think he's getting the treatment that a lot of other defendants are getting. I don't want to make any assumptions because obviously I haven't seen his cell or anything like that, but I don't know if he's necessarily getting VIP treatment as much so as he's just kind of being treated like any other possibly high-profile defendant.
All right. So, Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much. I know you have to head back into court. Really appreciate it. And I look forward.
Okay, the panel's coming up, you guys. There's going to be great questions asked. Let's continue. Fair use. Please continue to hit the like. Please continue to hit the like. Thank you. You guys are still subscribing. Thank you. I see the numbers constantly going up. Please continue to subscribe. Let's continue. This panel was amazing. Let's continue.
See you later.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, let's continue the conversation.
Here we go.
Back here with Safa, back here with Tyler. We're going to have a lot more questions coming in. So, Safa, Heidi Hocking asks, how does the jury decide on a four-person?
Well, usually, and it depends. If it's in state court, it's usually the person that is juror number one, and the way that they're seated by the judge. In federal court, they will have a conversation amongst themselves and designate who the four-person is going to be.
Yeah, and that's a daunting job, right, Tyler? I mean, do they feel like they have to be the mediator? They have to lead everybody in the right conversation? I wonder if every day they say, okay, our objective today is to go through counts 3 and 5. Our objective today is to go through racketeering. What role do they typically play in this?
So the thing that's interesting, there's no syllabus for being a four-person. The judge declares that you're the four-person, and then you pretty much take leadership with that role, how you see fit. I mean, a good four-person really helps drive what they're going to be considering, drives the conversation, make sure everybody's heard, and then we'll continue to move the deliberations along. It's always been a dream of mine. I wish I could be the juror. I doubt anybody would ever select me to serve on the jury, but it's a four-person, so it serves a specific role in really being a leader in the jury deliberation rooms.
I got a bunch of super chat questions coming in. Awesome super chat questions. Awesome questions in general. Safa, this is from Black Sigma. Thank you so much. This is fair, okay? Why was Cowboys for Angels not indicted or prosecuted?
Good question. Why were they not also indicted? Let's listen. Fair use reaction clip.
As a criminal enterprise. Remember, this is the service that provided alleged sex workers, in this case, male performers in this case. Why is Diddy the only one being charged in this racketeering conspiracy case? Why was Cowboys for Angels not indicted or prosecuted?
Excellent question. Honestly, that's a question that I myself have personally had with respect to this case. When we typically see RICO cases, we normally see a number of defendants. You can see anywhere from 2 to 15 to 20. It just depends. But I find it interesting, and this was a prosecutorial decision not to indict this company. I don't know why the answer to that is. Only they would know. But it is definitely a question that has come into my mind. If they are providing these alleged sex workers and receiving payment for these individuals' time and things of that nature, why have they not been charged as a part of this enterprise? I think it's a very great question.
And by the way, in the jury instructions, one of the things they were told is there were witnesses that weren't called. There were people who weren't called as witnesses, aka Christina Courtroom.
Oh, you trying to throw some shade my way? I know where the block button is. I'm giving great content. We've been going live almost every day. I've been giving my time, taking time away from my family, and we've been giving news from the news. So we've been bringing a lot of great content. How's your page doing? You lucky I'm not going to hit on your page. Do you have a page? How many subscribers you got? Let's continue. Fair use. This is where it gets good, you guys. We're going to ignore silly comments. You don't have to subscribe. Go on your page and report. Fair use, reaction clip. Let's continue. These are great questions, guys.
It wasn't mentioned specifically in the jury instructions, but you can't use that to infer anything. So, but look, jurors are human beings. They might be wondering why other people weren't in charge. Look, that was what the defense said. They said he's the only one charged in this. Who were the other?
Oh, I'm not letting nobody get me upset. But if there's foolishness in there and I see it, I got to address it. I don't play where I'm at. So where we come from, we address foolishness. So that way they won't come back. Let's continue. Let's continue to have a great day, though. Hi, thanks for tuning in. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Co-conspirators. So it's interesting to think about that.
All right, let's talk TV.
Okay, super chat question for you, Tyler. This is from Jose Talavera. Thank you so much, Jose. Pretending thousands of people are not watching this, okay? In your personal opinion, is he guilty or not guilty?
Good question.
Great question. I mean, when I'm on the show, I'm talking my personal opinion. I can care less about how many people are watching. But I think he's guilty of the charge that he's been accused of committing. If you look through the jury charges, if you read the actual statute, look at the verdict sheet, I think it's pretty hard not to convict him, or at least a Mann Act violation. RICO, I think the way the jury verdict sheet looks, it's pretty hard not to even convict him for RICO, because this RICO conspiracy, the judge described what a conspiracy is, and then you have 10 predicate crimes that you can choose from beneath that. So it's really hard, I think, for Mr. Combs to walk on this, and I personally feel that everybody's innocent to proven guilty, but the videos and the evidence and the testimony, it's kind of hard to ignore that.
Yeah, I've always said that I feel the transportation to engage in prostitution charges, if you look at the facts and you look at the evidence and the testimony in this case, particularly now that the jurors, through jury instructions, they don't even have to accept that the men that were transported or allegedly transported, they didn't have to be sex workers. They don't have to be prostitutes. They're just, if they were completed sex acts, you get there. I mean, through the text messages, the phone, the audio messages, the Amex receipts, the testimony, it put Diddy at the center of it. And I think it's going to be very, very hard to make the argument that he didn't know this was illegal or he didn't know what was going on. So I think he's probably going to get convicted of those. Racketeering, toss-up. Sex trafficking, probably stronger with Cassie than there is with Jane. We shall see. Natalie Mejia.
Be kind in the comments. YouTube will block your comment as well. Be kind in the comments. Thanks for tuning in.
Has a super chat question. Thank you so much. Not even a question. Wow. Jesse and Elizabeth for president, vice president 2028. Well, first of all, that's very kind. Second of all, wow, really? That's where we're at? I mean, stranger things, but no, if that's what we're looking at, we got some more serious problems. But hey, this is not the politics show. This is a way to get out of politics a little bit. All right, got a super chat comment from Katie. Excellent reporting and discussions, Jesse. I always notice when you aren't here. That's very sweet. How do you think Combs is handling deliberations? Will KK be charged immediately if he's found guilty? Safa, look, I don't think necessarily she's going to be even a part of this case. I don't even think we're charged afterward. There is a question why she wasn't called as a witness. There is a question about what she needed when they have all of her text messages and you have so much testimony.
Oh, yeah, they are blocking it. I'm not blocking it. There's several comments. I can see what people are saying. I didn't block that person that just said something 14 seconds ago, 15 seconds ago. YouTube is blocking comments. Don't you see when you come in, it says you got to follow the guidelines? I only have one mod. The mod's not even here. YouTube will block certain comments because I stated it that way. Block unwelcoming comments. Before I started my page, I made sure unwelcoming comments are blocked. What you know about it? That's not me blocking them. YouTube is blocking it. So I appreciate that. Unless some other people are blocking it, that's a possibility too. My mod's not here. So be kind in the comments. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for being here, everyone. Good afternoon.
About her. I think he's probably very nervous right now.
Oh, this is not a loop. This is a true live. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
There's a difference between being charged, waiting for trial, going into the jury selection process, beginning the trial, and now you represent clients. How nervous are they when you now come to the main question? will I be found guilty? And if I am found guilty, the likelihood of a successful appeal where the conviction can be overturned or my sentence can be overturned is not high. So there's everything at stake here. His whole life can change in any minute.
His entire life is at stake. And during the verdict watch process, everybody's on pins and needles. The defendant is, myself, or we as attorneys, we're all so nervous. The moment we hear that there's a note from the jury, everyone's stomach drops because we don't know if it's going to be a question or if it's going to be a verdict. So it is a very highly critical time right now, and everybody's nervous and everybody's on the edge of their seats. And you're right, Jesse, to your point, this moment is truly going to define what the rest of Mr. Combs' life looks like. And the likelihood of his conviction being overturned on appeal is probably not going to be likely unless there was some error that was done during the proceedings or by this lower court as it goes up on appeal to the Second Circuit, and ultimately wherever it may land after that.
Got a super chat question. Oh, we have Sierra Gillespie with us. Sierra, hi, good to see you. You're back. Okay, so Sierra, let's jump into the conversation. I want you to feel a part of this. And by the way, I'm sorry they didn't want you to be president or vice president, but I think that you are a part of this. I think you are a part of this administration. Whatever role you want.
I want to be in the cabinet.
You want to be in the cabinet? Secretary of State. How about that? Secretary of Defense while we're at
Please.
it. All right, we got a question.
Why not?
From Charles Menifee. Thank you so much, Charles. Did you cover the RICO? Did you cover the R. Kelly case? Because I get this question all the time. How does this case, this RICO case, differ from R. Kelly's case?
Good question.
I did cover R. Kelly, actually, Jesse. If we wind the clock back 3 years ago, this very week is the first time I met Jesse Weber in person. I have it on my calendar. I got to mark it because it was a monumental day for me. Actually, it was my first time I met any of my long crime coworkers because I was here in Manhattan. Actually, it was in Brooklyn, excuse me. It was in Brooklyn for the sentencing of R. Kelly. So I was there and I did cover it a bit. And I do remember when P. Diddy, even before he got indicted, when we first had these civil allegations, a lot of people were comparing the two. And I think they are similar in a way. There are definitely the differences between the two. How are we here? I mean, we heard Barrett in the last hour talking about, why it makes sense, the RICO charges here. And I tend to agree with her that it makes sense the reason that he's facing these charges. But I mean, I don't want to say R. Kelly walked so that P. Diddy could run in terms of the prosecution side of things. I'm not going to say that at all, even though I technically just did. I mean, there are big differences here. I don't know. I guess we can compare and contrast.
Well, the minors. It's all about minors. If minors were a part of this case, that defeats a lot of the planned defenses. Consent is no longer a defense. Then it's just you have to say it didn't happen. And while there were allegations about minors in the civil cases against Sean Combs, that was not something that was mentioned, referred to, that he was accused of in this criminal prosecution. Hey, first of all, somebody, Black Sigma says Sierra for press secretary. So there you go. I think you're beyond press secretary. No, I think Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, this is what you get. Maybe Attorney General. I don't know. I have to say that if I'm president in this scenario. I don't know. James Bolton. Will Diddy saying, wow, listen to this one, Sierra. James Bolton says, will Diddy say...
This is live. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And thank you for so many subscribing. I really appreciate you guys. I had to go live because I was hearing the great information they were giving us. That's what we like to do. We like to break down this case bit by bit, and we don't like to do any clickbait. We clear up the clickbait and we debunk stuff over here. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for being here, everyone.
The judge did an excellent job affect a possible appeal. Remember when he said that?
Yeah, I do remember when he said that. And I do think that's a topic of conversation, especially since all of us are wondering, when are we going to hear from Diddy? I mean, we heard from him in that apology video, I believe in May of 2024. And then that was it, right? He chose not to take the stand. So we didn't hear from him then. And the time that we did hear from him is when he basically said, you're doing a great job, sweetie, to the judge, And I don't know if that's going to affect appeal.
He did not say sweetie. He did say you're doing a great job. Just like I said, I debunked stuff over here. She added that, not me. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Continue to hit the like, you guys. Let's get the likes to 150. Thank you. Let's get the likes to 150. Thank you. So if 100 people double tap the screen, if you're watching from a phone, all you have to do is double tap the screen. And thank you.
In any way, I do think that it's something that's maybe going to be considered in all of this. Let's say that there is a conviction, and let's say that it comes to sentencing. The comparison that I like to do is that when your parent is the coach of your T-ball team, they don't want to start you. They don't want to put you out first because they don't want to show any sort of favoritism. And so I have heard, especially from our other guests here on Law and Crime, that sometimes when there is some sort of celebrity who's the defendant, perhaps maybe the judge is a little harder, doesn't want to show any preferential treatment here. And so perhaps maybe the judge would kind of keep that in the back of his mind, like, thank you, P. Diddy, for saying that I'm doing a great job. Okay, back at you, and then move on. I don't know that it's grounds for an appeal. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be mentioned at an appeal, but maybe just something that Judge Arun Subramanian would keep in the back of his mind.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Let's see. Okay. Ooh, got some more legal questions coming in. Safa, Christina Lester has another super chat question. Can you elaborate on the difference between reversed and vacated in appellate court?
Yeah, so what ultimately happens is if a person is convicted, then they go up on an appeal. If the court or if the appellate court determines that there was an issue with the lower court's decision, the appellate court would decide either to reverse the conviction. So if somebody was originally found guilty of murder, they would reverse that conviction. The person is no longer guilty of murder, or they would vacate it. And it'll also depend on if the person's going to stay in custody or if the government's going to have the ability to retry the case. Vacature essentially just means to get the conviction out of there as well.
I have a lot of questions about these notes, Tyler. I'm going to throw two to you. This is from Checka B. Why was the judge not able to answer the note from jurors about distribution being defined as the handing over of drugs? This is from yesterday. Why couldn't he answer with a simple yes response? And also, Joshua Randolph says, in most state cases, when the jury requests previous testimony, the judges refer them back to their notes or memory. Why is this different in federal court?
All right, so answering the first question, the specific question that came out was essentially asking the judge to give another definition for distribution. And in the jury charges, he already gave his instructions for the jury to consider for distribution. There's a specific question as to what distribution in the form of this case was from the jury. And the reason why he couldn't say anything further than that and referring back to the jury instructions, I think is the proper thing to do, because you don't want additional factors regarding how they're going to decide the law to be used by the jury when they decide not guilty or guilty based off the definitions that the judge gave. And then the second question, Jesse, if you could rephrase that for me.
Yeah, so the second question was, why was the judge, oh no, that was that one. Where was it? I lost it already. It was the one, where was it? I lost it already.
Well, I remember it now.
Oh, check yeah, why was the judge, it was about the drug distribution. So, why was the judge not able to answer the note from jurors about distribution being defined as the handing over of drugs with a simple yes response? Yeah, and then, yeah, that was the one.
Okay. Well, there was one more about the transcript, I believe, and why the judges didn't tell them to refer to the notes or the materials.
You're right. I'm trying to find that. What was that one? I saw it too. Yeah, it was basically. Here we go. No, that wasn't the one. We already answered that one.
He's so funny.
We got so many questions coming in. It's hard for me to make sense of it. I'll tell you what. We'll come back to that one. Let me go to Safa on this one. We got a question from Black Sigma. Super chat question. Thank you so much. When you say Diddy is charged with sex trafficking, are you saying that Cassie and Jane Doe are prostitutes and Diddy is a pimp? ...
Yes and no.
Good question. What do you think? Fair use reaction clip.
I mean, if you want to view it that way, sure. But the reality is the facts of this case have been laid out that he has engaged in sex trafficking with these particular women who are not prostitutes by any means, but it could apply in that sort of scenario. But in this particular case, the argument from the government has been that by the use of threats, fraud, or coercion, he has trafficked these women and caused them to engage in sexual activity through threats, through force, and through coercion. So the fact that they are not truly a pimp and a prostitute doesn't really matter, although it could apply in those circumstances as well.
Got a super chat comment from Sophisticated. Thank you so much. Absolutely sensational watching from Abu Dhabi with my friends. Oh my gosh. Can't believe how this case is unfolding. It's like something out of a movie. At times it really is a movie. What kind of movie is a question? Is it a horror movie or what? Got the super chat question from Angie. Let me throw this to you, Tyler. Hi, are you able to estimate where they are in deliberations? For example, do you think the jury has concluded on RICO and are now on the trafficking charges?
Yeah, I think that the jury is now on the trafficking charges, and that's based off the questions that they presented to the court earlier concerning Ms. Ventura and those three pieces of information that they're seeking. It seems to me that they moved on from that, and now they're trying to figure out if Mr. Combs is guilty of sex trafficking in regards to victim Ms. Ventura. And that's why those three questions were concerning different incidents with her.
Sierra, let me go to you. Jackie Reed asks, will the jury be confused on racketeering without anyone else being charged along with Diddy? That was something, right? That's something that came up by Mark Agnifilo in defense's closing argument. Where are his co-conspirators? KK's not a co-conspirator. The alleged victims are asking her for help. She's really an alleged co-conspirator. You think that's going to be a factor?
And like I said on my page, he's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thank you for subscribing, you guys. You still are subscribing. Thank you. Are you guys enjoying the information? I was listening and had to bring it to you. It's a great day outside. I was having such a great afternoon. And then I said, I got to bring it to my people. These are great questions. Let's continue. Fair use.
I think that this is a fantastic question. It's one that we've talked about actually on my show Scandal, which if you are interested in P. Diddy or any sort of celebrity, make sure to subscribe because we talk about things like this, celebrity crime and gossip and drama. So subscribe to that. Back to your question, Jesse, talking about their confusion. I mean, potentially, yeah, right? When these jurors came into all of this, who's to say if they've ever heard of RICO or racketeering, potentially may not have even ever heard of it. However, if they had, I'm going to guess that they heard something in relation to mobsters. And usually when it happens like that, when it's the mob or the mafia, there's multiple co-conspirators. And so, yes, I do think it's possible that these jurors are confused in this, especially if they're listening to the defense's closing arguments. As you pointed out, Mark Agnifilo really acting Mark the Shark in that way, saying, okay, what is this? This isn't even RICO. We got one guy.
Why did they only go after him, you guys? Were they expecting for him to give up a big fish and he didn't want to? Why is it just him? Will we see more raids? Will we see more people on trial? Fair use reaction clip. Why is it just him?
P. Diddy, Sean Combs, were the other alleged co-conspirators. Again, we talked about this time and time again. Where was KK? Why wasn't she called for the government or even the defense for that matter?
Facts.
So is it possible that they're confused? Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why we have jury deliberations, for some of them to say, okay, here's what I thought about that. Here's what I thought. And then it can confer and discuss and kind of point to closings and all the rest of the arguments that they heard. I do think it could be confusing, but I don't know that it would deter them ultimately from a conviction.
And we're going to wait and see. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be signing off. I've got like a million sidebars I'm doing today. But you're in great hands. You're with Sierra, okay, host of Scandal. Tyler's going to stick around. Saf is going to stick around. We're going to get to more of your questions as we are currently in verdict watch in the Sean Diddy Combs criminal trial.
Okay, you guys. I am grateful I was able to get through an hour and 50-something minutes. There was something that some of the ladies were talking about, and I kind of skipped some of it to get you guys to that part. Fair use reaction clip.
Recent juror note about reviewing transcripts signifies. Okay, 51% of you say weighing key testimony. 35% of you say possible confusion. And 12% of you say stall tactic. Interesting, a potential stall tactic. I don't know what I think about that. Elizabeth, I have another question for you from one of our viewers. They were asking, do you think this signifies we're wrapping up, that we're almost near the end? Okay, they want to review these court transcripts from some of these witnesses, and then we're kind of nearing the close. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we're at the actual close. A lot of times in previous trials, what I've seen is when the jurors do ask to see a key piece of transcript, typically a decision follows pretty closely after, because sometimes that could mean they're just trying to double check something. You know, again, jurors are taking notes all day long from this testimony, but, you know, no laptops, no phones are allowed in the federal court building. So they're taking all these notes ideally by hand. So it's impossible just to get everything. So I think a lot of what we've seen in other cases is juries kind of coming to a decision. They're checking their notes, but they might want, you know, another piece of information that they didn't get in their notes to double check, and then they come to decision quickly after. It could be that here, but again, it could also go completely the other way, where maybe there are some jurors that are on the fence about certain charges, some that are not. We had heard that one of the members of the jury had told the judge, you know, we think one of the jurors is having a bit of trouble following the judge's instructions, so that might have been a little bit of a hint about, you know, possible, not necessarily discord, but, you know, maybe one side of the jury feels one way, the other feels another. And remember, there's different charges that are on the table. You know, the O.J. Simpson case as an example, right? It was either guilty or not guilty on the charges that were put forward, murder charge. Here, there's different aspects of play. There's the racketeering, there's, you know, the sex trafficking. So it could mean that maybe a decision is close, but what I think is more likely happening is that they are trying to double check certain key pieces of testimony to make sure, are we all on the same page with all of these different charges that are on the table? And that's not easy to do. There's a lot of, with all the evidence that, you know, has gone forward, and a lot of people, you know, feel a certain way about if he should be convicted. It's a lot of charges that are on the table, and to get multiple people all on the same page, it takes time.
I agree. We're almost at 8 hours of deliberation, and I keep saying this, but I really do think that it shows that the jurors are taking their job seriously, that they're going through.
And it's more than 8 hours. Many people are surprised if they're not rushing. Sorry, many people are happy they're not rushing. They're taking their time. They're trying to follow the judge's instructions. Many people had said that are lawyers, it could take up to 3 or 4 days, if not more. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. I think a lot of people got excited because they thought that they would have a verdict yesterday. But yesterday, there was so much confusion. They had said there weren't as many people there in the morning, this morning, than yesterday. But it might be because of the heat, too. And maybe more people came out around 10 or 11. They said it's really hot out there. Fair use reaction clip. Let me know in the comments. Guilty, not guilty. Will there be a mistrial? Guilty, not guilty, mistrial. And in regards to you, your family, are you guys divided or you're on the same page? Let me know in the comments.
They're talking things out. And by the way, that question about whether this juror note or question regarding these 2 witness transcripts, could that signify the end of a verdict? I want to make sure to shout out the person who asked that. It was Rapper Trials who wrote that in. We've just been getting so many questions. I'm overwhelmed, but I love it, you guys, so keep them coming. This is another question. It is from Elisa Ray. What is the reason for the second witness being a Jane Doe not revealing her identity like other witnesses? Because, of course, when we're talking about the key witnesses in all of this, we have Cassie, Cassandra Ventura. We know her name. We saw her face in the sketches. She was there. But then we also have Mia, the former assistant, and Jane Doe, who was Diddy's former girlfriend or love interest. And both of them, in the courtroom sketches, we don't see their face. Both of them testified under pseudonyms, Mia and Jane. Elizabeth, what do you make of that? And I'm going to throw this out there. The fact that they were talking about things so traumatic, they were hoping to kind of conceal their identity or keep it private, right?
That's exactly right. So the key piece of difference that separates Cassie from these other alleged victims was Cassie filed a civil lawsuit in November 2023 before all.
Okay, update you guys. Hold on, because I'm reading this. Diddy, let's see. The jurors has reached a verdict on certain charges. On certain charges. And I'm reading that from a few different places. Let's see. Diddy jurors verdict. They're saying on some, and they're split on some. Okay, so let me go back. I always like to get my sources. Inner City Press. Let's see. Complex is talking about it. They're trying to reach a verdict, y'all. They're trying. Will we get a verdict today, tomorrow? I always try and update you when we're live. Let's see. They're trying to reach one. And then coming from People. Also from TMZ. Diddy's verdict. They're developing. So will they come in with a verdict today? And then a lot of people are saying partial verdict. They're trying to reach it. That's a good thing. But, I mean, we still have to be patient. What time is it? It's at the end of the day. It's 5. I'm wondering if they're going to come back tomorrow. Or are they sick and tired of the doggone heat going to that doggone courtroom? Of course, there's air conditioning in the courtroom, but they're definitely trying to reach a verdict. They're trying, y'all. That's what my page do. I try and update you while we're live, and I try and update you on what's being said. Like I said, if you're just not coming in, it's being reported that they found Gina. Okay, it's basically saying Diddy's ex, Gina, says she's not scared if he walks. And then she's allegedly stating, this is Gina, she said he never did anything dangerous to me. She did an interview. Allegedly, she said X, Y, and Z. Why is Gina said he never did anything dangerous to me? Did she I'm not going to go there. That's her thoughts. That's her opinion. TMZ is reporting that they saw Gina at a grocery store. I can't recall which one. Now, Shade Room is reporting that they ran into Gina, and she's basically saying, okay, I'll let y'all out. Hold on. I'll let y'all hear it. She said she don't know.
I've been hearing a lot of stories. Everybody been hearing like maybe you were kidnapped or like something like crazy. Like we're just hearing a lot of stuff. Is there anything you can clear up or anything like that? Real quick, before you go, I just want to know if Diddy does win this trial, do you think your life will be threatened in any kind of way? You don't think so?
She said no.
Because the girl Aubrey O'Day, she said that if Diddy wins, she can leave the country.
She said he never did anything dangerous to her. That's what she said. I'm surprised.
And it's easy for people to forget that because, you know, the indictment and everything that's happened, it's been over a year. But this all really stemmed from the November 2023 civil lawsuit that Cassie filed against Sean Combs, alleging a lot of the same things, saying that she alleges she was sex trafficked, that, you know, her former boyfriend's car was blown up.
We can't confirm or deny if she took a payout. We can't confirm or deny. She may not have just wanted to deal with it. Maybe she just wanted to move on with her life. Real talk. Who knows what happened? Because they said she was supposed to take the stand, but that was alleged. Because remember, there were certain women that were anonymous. Some people were trying to figure out, was Gina one of the people that was anonymous? Mia was anonymous and Jane Doe was anonymous. But it's interesting that she's now speaking out after jury's deliberating. You know what I'm saying? Fair use reaction clip. Let me know how y'all feel about Gina's out and about now.
All of these allegations against Combs. So she had already come forward publicly about that, and people knew who she was. They knew the context of their relationship. So her identity was always going to be revealed in the trial because she had come out with that civil lawsuit a year before. So, you know, obviously when Cassie Ventura testified, we didn't see inside the courtroom. Unfortunately, there's no cameras in federal court, but we all knew what she testified to and what she said. The other alleged female victims, they hadn't come forward with a civil lawsuit. And that's one of the things that the prosecution really tried to hit home, because one of the things that the defense was saying was, you know, Cassie Ventura is, of course, going to testify as to these things.
Oh, baby. Hot tea. This is real talk. It's being reported, allegedly from page 6. I do hot topics, trending topics. Baby, I got to update y'all. Wait a minute. Okay, from page 6. It looks as if Kylie Jenner has now unfollowed Timothy Charlemagne. Is his contract up? Were they really in a relationship? Kylie has allegedly unfollowed Timothy Charlemagne. Now, this could be a plot plan. Those K's and J's like to be crafty. She could be with Timothy next week. They like to be crafty. It's being reported from page 6, she unfollowed Timothy Charlemagne. Because remember, they were just at the basketball game. But remember, I kept questioning if they're really together. And I told Timothy, wrap it up. Wrap it up. She might want to get pregnant. Wrap it up. I'm not surprised she unfollowed him, because remember last week they were saying that they're not happy that Timothy won't allegedly come on the show. A man like Timothy can't be controlled. He's a movie star, basically. Did he utilize Kylie to help boost his career a little bit? And then, like I said, the K's and the J's are crafty. They could be together next month just for media attention, clicks, and views. That's what those celebrities do. But right now, from page 6, Kylie has unfollowed Timothy. I'm not surprised, because Kylie's on that trip. Kylie's at that wedding. Jeff Bezos' wedding and Lauren's wedding. Timothy wasn't with Kylie. So we should have knew something was going on. But don't be tricked. My page, I ain't dumb. They like to come together a month later. So we'll see. If they're not hanging out in a month or 2 weeks or 2 months, then it might be that they're broke up. Because Kylie went to that wedding. Jeff Bezos and Lauren's wedding. Kylie went to the wedding with the kids. Kylie went to that wedding with the kids. Why didn't Travis have the kids? Why didn't Timothy have the kids? And you barely saw Timothy with her kids. So was it a PR stunt? We don't know. But it's being reported Kylie has unfollowed him. Maybe because he won't do what the Kardashians want him to do. A lot of those men don't want to be on that show. Real talk. Okay, if you guys did not know, it's being reported that Remy Ma went to court on behalf of her son. She's attending the court, and there was an alleged situationship. I got to be careful what I say. So go on Neighborhood Talk. Remy Ma is trending. Let me see if there's any other hot topics, trending topics. Do you guys think that they'll reach a verdict today? I'm on verdict watch for y'all, strong, but also giving y'all a lot of good tea. I keep hitting reset. Let me see. Okay, so it's basically being reported. It's stating from Neighborhood Talk, jurors have reached a partial verdict on 4 out of 5 counts. Baby. Traffic. Yep. And it's basically being reported that the jurors are reportedly unable to reach a decision on the racketeering. Baby. Woo-wee. Yep. We knew that the racketeering might be an issue. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
She got a $20 million settlement from Combs, but these other unnamed alleged female victims didn't file any sort of lawsuit. They're not pursuing any sort of monetary damages against him. So their identity was kept.
Oh, it looks like Haley is on vacation with a guy. She's kissing a guy. Yeah, Haley Bailey is spotted kissing some guy. And he taking pictures of her turning her back around. And they kissing. Yep. They kissing there. They kissing when they got robes on. So it looks like Bailey is in a new situationship. What will DDG say or do? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. We're doing hot topics, trending topics, and the Diddy trial.
Private. I could understand why none of them would want to come forward with their identity because, like you said, they're testifying as to really allegedly traumatic incidents, and that's difficult for a lot of people, you know. So I think those are the two key differences. You know, they hadn't come forward in the way Cassie did, and also, you know, if they don't want to reveal their identity and you know who they are, then the jury and everyone else is expected to respect that privacy. And there's a lot of speculation online as to who they could be, but again, you know, you can't report on it as fact because they haven't come forward themselves.
Segue, talking about Cassie, to talk about the court update that I have for you. We now officially know what two witnesses the jurors were asking for testimony from. Here's the update. The judge says, Judge Arun Subramanian, we have received a note from the jury asking for testimony of Cassandra Ventura as to the Intercontinental and Cannes incidents and the Daniel Phillips Essex Hotel incident. Daniel Phillips' testimony on that as well. So here's the response. Maureen Comey says,
okay, so this is funny. People are realizing that Kylie allegedly unfollowed Timothy, so now she's on Instagram talking. I'll go listen to it later. The Kardashians are definitely looking for media attention, clicks, and views. They literally tried to outshine Jeff Bezos' wife in that wedding. Yes, they did. So, like I said, it could be that Kylie's just trying to get people to come over to her page. Is her and Timothy really over? And if we see Timothy with somebody else in 2 more months, 3 more months, then we'll know it's over. But until then, this might be a plot plan. They do a lot of stuff for PR because they need a distraction. Everybody's calling Kylie out because remember, Kylie's dress was like a silverish, light tan. It wasn't white. It almost looked like a silver dress. So people were calling Kylie out for trying to dress in something similar to white. So they called Kylie out. So the dress she got on now is different than the dress she had at the wedding. So many people were calling the Kardashians out because if you didn't know, me and my friend was talking about this. The Kardashians wanted to trend with the wife. So maybe they'll have a picture of Lauren and Jeff. Then they'll have a picture of a Kardashian. Then they'll have a picture of Oprah. Then they'll have another picture of a Kardashian or Jenner. Then they'll have another picture of Lauren. The Kardashians wanted to be in between. So if you were showing pictures of the wedding, they wanted to be a part of that stream. Yeah, interesting. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Them K's and J's is something else, y'all.
We have a disagreement. Not surprising in all of this. The judge says, first, let me know if either side minds me bringing the jury out and speaking to them. Now, Comey says, we don't see a need. Whereas Mark Agnifilo says, I confirmed with Mr. Combs and we don't see a need either. So judge says, as to any further note, let me know. So Elizabeth, we now know we're talking about Cassie Ventura and Daniel Phillips as far as these incidents. What do you make? Does that give us any sort of clue as to where the deliberations are now?
If y'all did not know, Pete Davis has a new boo bae. Will the K's and the J's try and spin another story about Pete? Pete needed to take a break. Once he broke up with Kim, Kim still wanted to talk about Pete, and Pete was over it. So it's being allegedly that Pete Davis allegedly dropped $31K with a matching Rolex for his girlfriend. He didn't do that with the K and the J. He didn't do that with Kim. So it's nice to see that he might be in a healthy relationship. It looks like they're actually going to purchase the Rolexes. So that's nice. I hope he's doing well. Pete went through a lot with them K's and J's and the comments Kanye had to say and what Kanye was doing. It was unacceptable. It was unacceptable. But Kanye felt away in regards to Pete dating Kim. Because remember, Pete was cool with Kanye. If y'all don't know, go check out this picture. Go look it up. There's a picture of Pete, Kanye West, Timothy Chalamet, and Kid Cudi in one picture. Go look it up. And allegedly Kim took that picture. So these men knew the Kardashians. Kanye was in the picture. Pete Davis was in the picture. Timothy Chalamet and Kid Cudi was in the picture. Yeah. So Pete knew Kanye. So why would you be trying to date somebody else's wife? But it is what it is. And they weren't divorced yet. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's tough to say exactly what they're going to use that key piece of evidence for in terms of making a decision. I'm not surprised that it did relate to Cassie. And then also, again, Daniel Phillip was one of the witnesses that was put forward. He testified to a lot of things that he allegedly saw happen between Cassie and Diddy, alleged abuse, things like that. So the fact that they're going to what Cassie had testified to, especially in relation to that hotel video, it doesn't surprise me just because, again, she's such a key witness. That's such a big piece of key evidence in the case. So that doesn't surprise me. Also, again, having multiple witnesses that can possibly corroborate what she first testified to in the first beginning weeks of trial. I think, to me, if they're specifically asking about that, it seems like that might go towards possible racketeering charges because, again, there's so many acts that could underlay racketeering, abuse, things like that. So it could possibly be, are they having a struggle trying to see if the elements have been met for racketeering? It could also be possibly going to the sex trafficking charges. Again, that's a really big piece of what Cassie's being used as a witness for, and these other alleged female victims, them saying they were forced to engage in intercourse with these male escorts and therefore sex trafficking was present.
We're on verdict watch. We will see what happens. We're on verdict watch. Will they make a decision today? Will they have to come back tomorrow? Will they try and make a decision before the 4th of July? Do you think he's guilty? Not guilty? Will there be a mistrial? Are you and your family in agreement or disagreement in regards to this case? They're trying to reach a verdict, but there's certain concerns that they're having in regards to other things. We're reading it from different sources. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for tuning in with me. We've been live for almost 2.5 hours. Two hours and 15 minutes.
Things, but again, the fact that it's in relation to Cassie doesn't surprise me because she's just such a huge witness in all of this.
And are you guys surprised that 50% of the case was about Cassie and not his business partners, not the bodyguard, not KK? They brought in a lot of the assistants that talked about what they had to do working with him. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
That there was some sort of question from the jurors about witness testimony. We both were like, okay, it's got to be Cassie, right? And it seems like it was. And we do have that more information. They want Cassie, they want Daniel Phillip, and then that's it. I mean, to your point, Elizabeth, everything you were just talking about, there's so many different ways that it could go because, again, Cassie was the star witness. She testified about so many other things. Now, I do have another update from the courtroom. This is AUSA Johnson. She says, we have a disagreement about the redirect and the can incident and the events immediately following. The answer was to what happened when Sean was angry. It referred to the freak-off that occurred upon landing in New York. Now, the judge later says, I would likely cut it off sooner. And then Giragos from Diddy's team says, I have nothing to add. AUSA Johnson responds by saying, we may need to speak with the court about the Intercontinental. Judge says, let my deputy know when you're ready and I'll come back. So it seems to me that both sides, defense, prosecution, are going to kind of talk about these two things, discuss, hopefully come to some sort of agreement. Then they'll, discuss that with the judge, bring it back to him, and then maybe there would be a response for the jury. Meanwhile, we're almost at 8 hours of deliberation, you guys. So a lot happening here. For now, I'm going to sign off live from the Southern District of Manhattan. We have a lot more to cover here again.
Yeah, there's a lot more still to cover, you guys. This is interesting because this was June 12th. I don't think Kylie's on the billionaires list. No, she's a millionaire. She's not a billionaire. And this report is old because Selena Gomez is a billionaire. And Rihanna, I think, is still on the billionaires list. And did they say Halle Bieber hit the billionaires list or millionaires list? But here nor there. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm glad I was able to reiterate what they were talking about because I cut it off to get to the panel. That panel was literally 15 minutes. I'm surprised I caught that panel because they're live for like 7 hours. So yeah, you guys, we covered a lot. Thank you guys for letting me hit 39K. We hit 39K. And there's still more that subscribe. We hit 39K plus 28 have subscribed. So over the last week, I probably had several subscribe, and thank you. I appreciate you guys. My page gets millions of views per month. We do. But people are tuned in and they sometimes forget to hit the like. Sometimes forget to subscribe. So that's why I mention it. And I hope you guys appreciate what I did today. I didn't plan on coming back live, but that panel was great. The conversation was great. And I wanted to update you guys on what's going on. Most likely I'll be live tomorrow morning, probably from either, I don't know, I might have to take care of something. So I might be live either 8 9, or I'll be live 11 or 12 or 1 or 2, just depending on. I gotta give you guys that time because I know I have something I have to take care of. So either 8, 9, 11 or 12, or 12 or 1. Or 1 or 2, depending on. But thank you for being here. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Don't forget, focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. For the replay game, please continue to subscribe. Please continue to hit like, and super chats are welcome. Thank you guys. Be blessed. I wonder what that, I'm not going to hit that. I don't know what the top fan means. Somebody claim themselves as a top fan. I don't want to hit it and mess up my stream. So whoever the top fan was, I guess maybe they made more comments than everyone else. Maybe, I don't know. I'll look that up later. Thanks for being here, everyone. Be blessed. Bye. Oh, let me know. Guilty, not guilty, mistrial. Will they come to a decision today or tomorrow or before the holiday? Thanks, guys. Goodbye. Be blessed.